That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting, say they high, say they sippin' pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl, somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force them as simple that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature, that mean extorted it. They forging it, if news anchors informants who informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this, we courting ships, important gifts, of course it is. What extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing this, informing this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting, say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?
In a world. In a world. How's it going? All right, we got a little bit of a different camera setup. Didn't get it perfect, but we'll get it there. You know. Okay, so off the rip, someone said uh, Congress didn't. That they ripped the bill they were supposed to vote on. So isn't your title a little misleading? One would think. One would think, but no. And so if you don't know, um, Israel is said to be our greatest ally, and they being Congress, was supposed to vote on a bill today. Of course, I set the stream up yesterday about like forbidding boycotting Israel, and it was punishable by a fine up to $1 million or up to 20 years in prison. You heard that right. You heard that right. So there's a few people in Congress. They were, making posts on X, and they were saying, "Oh, this is against free speech, and I can't stand behind this bill," and blah blah blah. Which it of course is, right? I mean, like, just think about it. Boycotting somewhere is like the most peaceful way to vocalize opposition to something, right? Like, for example, when Bud Light was super gay, people were like, "Yo, I'm not drinking Bud Light anymore." People stopped buying Bud Light. They boycotted Bud Light. It's actually probably the most preferable, effective, actionable way to express opposition to boycotting. So they were talking about passing a bill, which of course means that someone in Congress actually drafted it and put it forward for it to be passed, um, forbidding the boycotting of Israel. And again, you can be fined up to $1 million and imprisoned up to 20 years. There's a little bit of nuance there. It's about international organizations having basically stamped said boycott, etc. We're going to get into it. And then, of course, since they pulled the bill because they got such backlash for it, we're going to discuss a few other things and see. We're going to examine the question: is Israel our greatest ally? Now, I know a lot of people are like, "Man, yo, talk about the Earth, Austin," or talk about Antarctica for the 477th time, or I've heard Israel, Israel, Israel so much over the last couple years. Can we talk about something else? Well, I will grant you that it is very frequently discussed, and I think that it should be. And when you really deep dive into the relationship between the United States and Israel, you find out pretty quickly Israel actually runs America. They run the United States. And so I would say it's pretty important to understand that. It's pretty important to know kind of what their goals are, how do they run the country, et cetera, et cetera. So we're gonna get into some of that. Also, I've obviously been away for a while. So I took a long break and then I came back. I did a stream or two. And a few different times I thought I was gonna come back to regularly streaming. Um, I actually considered stepping away for good. I prayed some about it, kind of waited for some signs and answers. I feel I was given a pretty resounding confirmation that I am, in fact, supposed to keep streaming. I feel led to do so. That's what I'm supposed to do. So here we are. There's the answer to that. And like I said, I was planning on coming back a few different times, and I haven't yet, and I am now. So now we will stream probably every day this week except for Friday because I will be traveling. Um, but the reason for me being away um, is well, it's many different reasons, right? Like obviously, Antarctica was a whole fiasco, was the whole thing, and I'm sure that many of you know that other things have happened since then. I um, obviously was turned on by the vast majority of people that were kind of in my corner for a long time, which I don't. I mean, that's nice, whatever. But let's just say the last few months, I saw a lot of people's true colors, and then you know how it goes. Whenever you're in a bit of a situation, there's some inclination to kick you while you're down or whatever. So anyway, a lot going on behind the scenes, and I am going to let you guys know what has been going on, kind of where we are now, what's the situation, and then where we're going forward. But I don't want to talk about that all right now because people are here to hear the title of the stream. So we're gonna cover that a little bit later in the stream, maybe halfway through, maybe at the end, and I'll kind of let you guys know, yeah, what's been going on, and then we can just move on past it. Very cool, very cool. If you want to support the stream, Kofi.com/Witsit. That's KO-FI.com/Witsit. And I have moved some stuff around, so hopefully the audio's cutting. Oh, that's what I was about to ask. Ooh. Ooh. Maybe it's better now. Let me know if it's better now. So funny. I'm like, yo, I want to check the audio. And a bunch of you guys were in the chat saying it's cutting out. It may have been that the mic was like this. So you guys want to give me feedback? Better than veterans. Don't want to let them in. Ain't got a choice but to let them in. Food is your medicine. Don't teach you Tesla. They teaching you Edison. What is a president? We not electing it. Mean they selected it. Blessed with the rhetoric. The grabblers did 9/11. Don't believe me? Then check the subliminal messaging and all the evidence in the wreckages. The Earth's electric and that means it's resonance. Really your resonance. Still cutting out. Audio is fine. Okay, we're good now. I think it probably was like the direction of the directionality of the audio in relation to the microphone. Cool. All right. I don't know what you guys missed. I'm just saying a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. It's been a very interesting and eventful last few months for me. Some major changes, and I will fill you guys in with exactly why I've stepped away, why I've kind of decided I was about to come back, but did not come back a few different times, where we're at, what the updates are, and where we're going forward. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. This is a new era for me, and yeah, I'm genuinely excited about it. So I'll tell you guys about that maybe middle of the stream after we cover some of this, or maybe at the end of the stream so we can get into the topic. And if I repeated that in case the mic was so bad that you couldn't hear it, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. It's a bit better. Like, and this is what's tricky is I should only listen to, um, 'cause I swear there's like autistic people in the chat. Like, I go back and listen, and the audio wasn't bad, and then sometimes it was. So it's hard to tell. And then there are people that are like troll. The mic was working before, just was choppy, all good now, dude. Word. All right, let's get into the topic here. So I think that this video should be loaded up. I'll kind of mess with the noise gate and stuff while this video plays. Let's check this out. So there is, well, for one, to address the first question, right, which is about, isn't your title misleading? No, actually, the whole conversation that's been going on recently is what is misleading. Oh, I need to be maybe more centered, eh? So this already exists. It already exists. So Israel Anti-Boycott Act 2022. This bill prohibits by certain entities and individuals in boycotts or requests for boycotts imposed by international organizations, the United Nations and the European Union, for example. Specifically, the bill applies to covered persons the prohibition of specified actions in compliance with or in support of a boycott against a country that is friendly to the United States and that is not itself the object of a U.S. boycott. The bill defines a covered person as a domestic concern, the U.S. government or a state government or a representative or official of such domestic concern or government. This bill also adds to the list of specified prohibited actions the act of furnishing information to any foreign country or international governmental organization that furthers an imposed boycott. Under current law, a person who violates the prohibitions against such boycotts may be subject to a monetary fine or imprisonment. However, the bill removes imprisonment as a potential penalty for certain violations. All right. Now, they were going to, again, vote on another one. They got pulled off of the list or whatever, the docket. I don't know. I know in court it's called a docket. I don't know what it's necessarily called in Congress. And they didn't vote on it. They got a lot of backlash. Now, if you listen to my recent, and I'm just making the point that everyone's talking about this, like, oh, this is against the First Amendment. Then what were you guys doing in 2022, my guy? This is already a thing. And so the reason I'm covering this is because if you guys have followed me at all, I'm like very, very passionate about free speech. I think it is the most important thing that exists. People love to say they're like a free speech absolutist, kind of to make the point. I'm not a free speech absolutist. I don't think that you should be able to talk about, like, I don't think you should be able to sexualize children. I don't think that you should be able to specifically and directly call for violence against other people. That's obviously already illegal. I don't think that child pornography is covered by the First Amendment, right? There are quite a few things. Now, in like an idealized country, I mean, I don't know. I oftentimes don't even fully reveal my views on this. I think that the most ideal, like, governmental structure would be a monarchy with a really just king that's super based and actually cares about the people and is accountable to them and adheres to the scriptures. So that's what I think. Now, am I saying I think America should turn into that? No, I don't actually. I think that everything is relative and where we are right now. The best thing we could do is reverse a little bit and try to maintain some of the structure that was built here. Okay, so all that aside, when I was covering the anti-Semitism false flags in the recent stream, I was kind of pointing out that something's not adding up, and this is super sketchy. And now everyone's talking about Israel consistently. This is a perfect example. They throw this bill out, everyone's talking about it. Now, obviously, all eyes are on Israel right now. You're not going to get away with something like this. And previously, it would have been swept under the rug. Most people don't even know that a bill about boycotting Israel is already a thing. A year or so ago, I actually started looking into it, and I saw there are all kinds of laws and acts already in place protecting Israel. And let's just get this out of the way here, right? Okay, so Israel is basically an ethno state. You actually need to take a DNA test to get there and to be permitted citizenship. And there's like reigning ideology that they're basically many people are ethnic supremacists, right? You have interpretation of Judaism that is that they are literally chosen, that they are denoted genetically, physically from other groups of people and thus superior. That's what chosen means. And that there's actually distinction made between Jewish people and non-Jewish people. And this very bluntly translates over into Israel, right? It spills over. So let me give you an example. Now, I'll cover this probably because I'm going to be streaming a lot now, like every day. So I'll probably cover nuclear bombs at some point. You guys let me know because now the mic's so close, it may be a little intense. I'm hoping I'm not like blowing you guys out. Maybe run Boston. You can text me if it's not good. So, nuclear bombs. If you really look into it, right, like very quickly, it's super sus to say the least, right? Like the whole story we're told about Nagasaki and Hiroshima doesn't really add up. So if you research that, we're told that we came in as some saviors and dropped. We were saviors because we supposedly dropped incredibly destructive nuclear bombs on a bunch of women and children and made the place uninhabitable because of radioactive blah blah. Like that isn't what happened. We came in and saved the day and made them surrender, right? In a world war because we dropped bombs, nuclear bombs. That's the story we're told. That isn't what happened. There were like 1 million troops invading from the north on the ground the day before they surrendered. That's why they surrendered. We were firebombing them the entire summer. We were already firebombing them, and it was originally reported as firebombing in Japan. There was actually, you couldn't even legally report on it in the United States at the time. There was one approved journalist, and if you were to cover the story, discuss the story, whatever, you could only relay that approved propaganda. That's real, right? And it was considered treason to do something other than that, to like say go individually cover it. And of course, treason is punishable by death. So quite literally, if you were to go investigate and report on the quote unquote nuclear bombs that we dropped on Japan, independently in the United States, you could have faced the death penalty for treason. That's interesting, right? I mean, I feel like I shouldn't have to articulate this, but usually the people you're not allowed to criticize, the topics you're not allowed to discuss or question, or the events that you're not allowed to even like dispute in any way, that's where the truth lies, and they need to hide it. Meaning that what you will discover upon further investigation and free discussion is obviously detrimental to whatever power structure is implementing said rules, right? It's a very easy concept to understand. So this is obvious, and let's apply that same logic that always holds true to the nuclear bomb situation. So we won't get on to that. We'll maybe cover it in the future. There is a good book on it. I think it's literally called The Nuclear Bomb Hoax, but I'm not positive. Maybe someone can say in the chat. So yeah, look into it. It's very interesting. But and one might say, so what that proves, that doesn't prove that nuclear bombs don't exist. What it proves is that we weren't being told the true full story about what actually happened. And so then we look at what they told us. They told us they dropped nuclear bombs. And then you go look at the footage, and a lot of it's provably fake, like little models. Like, why would you have to do that? And I mean, why would you have to fake go into space if you actually go there? So what's interesting about that is, well, for one, what do they get out of lying about nuclear weapons? It is like the biggest fear, like tool of fear propaganda and fear porn in the world. It is the primary staple for justification of all kinds of atrocities. It's like, oh, we have to go to the Middle East and intervene and completely destroy these people's lives and upend it. And then we're over here in America watching YouTube shorts completely detached from anything, on the other side of the world or whatever. So we don't even realize just how insane the actions of the US government have been in the Middle East, for example. And people are curious why maybe we're not everyone's favorite country. Because on paper, we are the best country in terms of freedoms and liberties. And again, that loops all the way back to free speech. Free speech is incredibly important because you actually have to formulate thoughts to then formulate and articulate words. And so, whenever there are free speech laws, right, that are actually prohibiting what you are allowed to say, it's now actually altering your actual thinking. It is a very dangerous place to not be able to speak freely. No matter what you have to say, no matter if someone thinks it's hateful, someone is offended, I mean, it should be common sense. You're allowed to say whatever. And actually, it's very important that people then consistently speak about the topics that they say we're not allowed to, so that we make it clear we will not be complying to such nonsense. America's the last one standing in that regard. I think we're literally like the only civilized first world country in the world without hate speech laws. And if you watch the previous stream, they're clearly trying to push us that way. So this is the reason that I will be somewhat regularly covering Israel. I think it's important because we need to keep an eye on what's going on. What are they doing? Right? What are they up to? Because again, like the last couple of days, this bill has been circulating all over X about how they're going to ban boycotting Israel. That's just absurd to even say out loud. It's like such a surreal thing, right? Like we live in a country owned by another country, run by some other little country in the Middle East. That's so small it has to be labeled off in the water. How does that country run our country? And the answer is pretty obvious, right? I mean, they did it many different ways. They infiltrated our government and they got blackmail on all of these degenerates that are in office, and then they puppeteer them. They control them, right? And they have lots of money. They have lots of technological power, we'll say. A lot of the headquarters of various major technological sectors are in Israel. So anyway, it's just very interesting, right? You should kind of step back and think like, what's going on here? Why are they letting us know they're trying to do this? Because almost no one knows that this other bill right here exists. And that's been the case for 3 years now. Now all of a sudden people know. I think that they want people to get upset with Israel. I covered this in the previous stream because they want to swoop in and they want to react to it. They need a Hegelian dialectic, some type of justification to pass speech laws. And this is the thing, right? Israel's already got so much blood on its hands. It's already done so much stuff for so long. But if there's like a bigger plan at play and they're really trying to justify like some type of speech laws, it makes you think, what are you planning on doing that you need to make sure we can't talk about, right? And I will just remind you, a lot of people may not know this, but if you look at the Soviet Union, if you look at the Bolsheviks and stuff, if you look at what happened back then, what was the first thing that they did? Banned anti-Semitism. And then how did they handle people that violated that ban? They put together a special little unit to seek out anti-Semitism and then arrest them and then executed them. And so we covered that in that stream. And if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to check it out. I showed Trump just straight up saying something about, with anti-Semitic hate crimes, that they should bring back the death penalty. It's very surreal. It's very surreal. So it's ironic you have like these kind of crazy, deranged leftists that say, Trump is Hitler, insulting him. And ironically, if you zoom all the way out, I mean, when they're saying he's totalitarian, it is kind of weird. And so he gets to fly under the radar because the opposition vocalized against him is so stupid, right? And then the other side, quote unquote, which of course this tribalistic colors and divisions of teams is so low IQ, it like literally just renders everybody retarded. But they obviously let everything fly because they're just viewing it through the false binary or dichotomy of the red and the blue teams, right? All right, not to get too much into the weeds here, we're gonna get back on the topic. Um, like these bills and acts already exist, but everyone's talking about this one, so now they're acting like, oh, like Thomas Massie and a few other people vocalized opposition to it, so they're some type of heroes. So let's watch this real fast, just so you know if you. Oh, and wait, I did kind of forget to finish this over here. So, like with the nuclear bomb situation, right? I mean, we'll cover that in depth later, but they lied. Okay, we firebombed them. They did not surrender because we dropped nuclear bombs on them. Like, dude, guys, how are you recording the nuclear bomb? Why did a car pop up out of nowhere in one of the videos? Like, you can easily prove that those videos were fake propaganda, but. So again, 1 million troops invading on the ground from the north, and then they surrendered that very next day. That's why they surrendered. We were firebombing them the entire summer. They initially reported it as firebombing. The US government forbid any type of independent journalism in the United States. They had one approved story from one approved journalist. It doesn't take a genius to put the pieces together. And again, why would they lie about something like that? Because they say, oh, we can't let Iran get a nuclear bomb. Oh, this person has nuclear weapons, blah, blah, blah. And they've used that to justify all kinds of things. And then that's always like this overarching threat that should keep everyone in submission. Like the idea that someone can press a button that causes a bunch of other people to also press their button and the whole world will just be wiped out overnight. That is not the situation. Right? I don't buy that at all. Okay. Obviously, you have the burden of proof if you're actually claiming, certainly if you're claiming like these little reified atoms, split, implode, and then just explode everywhere. I mean, that's a cool story, bro, but that's a positive claim. It's like, oh man, you prove nuclear bombs don't exist. Shifting the burden of proof fallacy, obviously, right? It's shifting the burden to the party that challenges or denies the positive assertion being made. So, very simple concept. I don't have to buy your story. I am challenging or denying this idea that, some dude can press a button and just destroy the whole world. But what is interesting is there's definitely something to the efficacy of power generation when it comes to, say, uranium. And, it's not like all like nuclear related technologies are, fictional and don't exist. And so put that aside, it doesn't really matter. We were lied to and scared with propaganda about nuclear weapons, whether or not they exist or exist as they say. We know that they have dangerous weapons. We know there are crazy people that will literally look at numbers or people as statistics. We're watching it happen right now as there's basically effectively a genocide taking place. And we're just having women and children being massacred. And then so many people, like even in my life, so many people, they don't even care. Like they just are completely numb to it, don't know anything about it, couldn't care less. They just focus on this. We're talking, imagine that happening here. Imagine your children being like run out of their house. And so then you need to go north, or you're going to get blown up. I'm like, why? Because there are some other people in this general area that might be bad. So we're going to blow up the whole area. But go north and you'll be safe. You have to leave all your stuff. Try to go take your children. And then they come to where they told you to go and say, hey, man, you need to keep going north. We're going to blow this place up now. And then every once in a while, they just blow the place up that you're at. They told you to go. And then here's a little camp. You can go be safe, blow it up. And then the people from around the world are trying to send you food and they're stopping the food. And they have like this mass starvation campaign. And then, over 50% of the population are women and children. I know a lot of you guys have heard of that. Well, there's like, what has happened to society where people are so apathetic and self-absorbed and narcissistic and void of empathy that it's like, oh, it's a nuisance and you're bored of people talking about the massacre of women and children. That's where we are. That's where we are as a society. People are so detached that literal murder and massacre of innocent babies is annoying. like, yeah, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it. We have to speak out against it. And it sucks because in a way it feels like we're being guided, because anyone with even an ounce of common sense and empathy knows that these cover stories of collateral damage and they're using citizen shields, they're like are just BS. It's just nonsense. So anyway, before I go too much on a rant about that, obviously in reference to the Israel-Gaza situation. So, and all of this is to make a more specific point about Israel. So, if you look back into JFK, and if you really look into this, is what this veil is about to be pulled off of the eyes of most of Americans, in my opinion. I don't think you can put the cat back in the bag, and part of me even actually leans towards the idea that it's being done on purpose. Once even some of these super diehard pro-Israel conservative Christians start to find out what Israel's actually done, it's a wrap. It is a wrap. Here's just one example. Looking at JFK. Okay, who really assassinated him? Obviously, there are layers to the conspiracy. Some say he faked his death. I don't think that. If you think that's cool. Oh, I will say this very profound point. Some people seem to have forgotten. We can agree to disagree. It's okay. I don't have to be your enemy, nor do you have to be mine because we don't agree on something. Anyway, so I obviously the cover story or the official story of the JFK assassination is nonsense, and it is a pretty crazy rabbit hole. Not one that I'm going to cover. There are people that have invested way more time into doing that than I care to. I would actually shout out Ryan Dawson has done pretty good work on JFK. So obviously Israel's fingerprints are all over the assassination of JFK. If you don't know that, you should check it out. And one of the things that JFK did was he started putting pressure on them about their nuclear program, right? And he said, "You have to let me come in here and inspect this." They created a whole fake little showroom with like fake control panels and dials for him to come in there and examine something that wasn't even real, so they would be in compliance. So they just lie. I believe JFK is actually quoted, weak word alert. He's actually quoted as saying like, all these bastards do is lie to me or something like that in reference to Israel. Okay. Now he also told the lobby that's now AIPAC, its predecessor, that it had to register under FARA, which is like foreign countries that are donating money to basically buy off our politicians. If any lobbying efforts done in America on behalf of a foreign country, they actually have to register. And then what that means when they have to register, because again, their interests are another country, not America's. So what they then have to do is they have to show you how they're spending all their money and where they're getting their money from. Israel obviously doesn't want to do that. Well, it's not supposed to be technically Israel, right? It's like AIPAC now. So obviously AIPAC doesn't want to do that because it's coming directly from the Israeli government. So they fight against that, and they still don't have to do it. And so the whole point I'm making here, and I'm about to give you a few different examples, is it's again an overlap with this idea that we're special, we're different, we're chosen. This idea of ethnic supremacy embedded in Judaism, in many interpretations, or the vast majority of them, it spills over into Israel. They seem to think that they're a chosen country. In fact, a lot of Christians in America have been convinced of this idea as well, largely due to misinformation and propaganda fed through all the ministry schools. And of course, that starts with the Schofield Bible primarily. And then they tried to claim that there was actually a prophecy of a physical state of Israel, although the scriptures are very clear that isn't in any way the way that what it's saying, right? Israel is a spiritual house, a spiritual family. It's believers. Not everyone from Israel is of Israel. Not even the people that are genetically from those 12 tribes, which, by the way, all the genealogical records were destroyed. No one can actually know who that is. And it makes sense to me why the creator would do that. Look how people act now, right? Look how a certain group claiming to be from those tribes acts. And so, of course, he allowed them to be destroyed. In my opinion, it's very obvious why. Just like we're told in Acts, right, when Peter has a vision. And look, if you're getting triggered, I'm talking about the Bible, bro. Like, where are you at? Like, you're behind, my guy. The Bible is the most historically accurate compilation of texts that exist. And even if you just view it strictly for historical value and input, it is incredibly valuable. So, pump the brakes if you're getting triggered. No one cares. So you actually look at Peter in Acts, he's given a vision, and in the vision, he's told by the Creator to eat uh, unclean meat. And a lot of modern Christians who say that we're under the new covenant and the law was done away with and all this stuff, they'll actually point to that as proof that we're not under any type of dietary restrictions anymore, according to the scriptures, because it was done away with. And it's a very dishonest approach and tactic because literally Peter's super confused, right? He's super confused about the dream because he's being told to eat unclean meat. He's like, "What? I've never eaten unclean. It's not a dream, it's a vision. An unclean meat in my life. What are you talking about?" And so he's just trying to figure it out after the fact. And then an angel kind of gives him a nudge to say, "Hey, there are some people downstairs that are looking for you, and we sent them. Like they're there for you. Go talk to them." And then he's able to understand the dream, which is that the Creator's not a respecter of persons, meaning that it doesn't matter what your genealogies or ethnicity is. Like the Creator doesn't specifically prefer any individual groups based on like their racial identity or anything like that. And so he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, now the dream makes sense." And the whole thing that was said was, how could anything be impure if the Creator makes it pure? And so that specifically was the whole reason Peter was confused, because he knew it couldn't literally be about eating unclean meat, because he knew that that's strictly forbidden. And then he interprets it repeatedly right after that in Acts, and people pick it out to say that you can eat your bacon or whatever. But put that on pause, like you agree, disagree, don't care. The point I'm bringing, the reason that came up is because the Creator isn't a respecter of persons, and it was about the Jew and the Gentile, and can we interact with them? That was actually a Talmudic thing anyway, right? Where they're saying, like, again, it starts back with this like Pharisee, Sadducees, Talmudic interpretation that we're better than everyone else, right? And that's actually what Yeshua came to rebuke. Okay, repeatedly, and made it very clear. And actually, side note, some people like when I flow like this, and people don't. I mean, my stream may not be for you. But so, side note, Yeshua was like always doing mental jujitsu, and there's so many beautiful, profound things in the scriptures that are totally omitted in modern Christianity. But to give you an example, right? Yeshua healed someone of blindness. I'm going to track it all the way back to where we're going. We're building a case here. So the person was blind, and there's all kinds of these Talmudic laws. They just were adding to all kinds of things. And it says, do not add or take away from the law. And Torah actually means instructions. It's like an instruction manual, right? It's like, hey, by the way, I created this whole place. There's this huge metaphysical realm you can't see, and then there's this material physical realm within it. And it's kind of like a game in a way. And so here's the cheat code. Here's the instruction manual, just so you know how to operate. And this gives you an advantage. You can try to go through life without the instruction manual, but why would you do that? Why would you try to build a desk without it when you can open up the instruction manual and very quickly build it? But you can stumble around and mess it up, and then try and put your computer on it, and it can collapse, and then you can try to go rebuild it. But it's just an instruction manual. So anyway, they can't add to it. So what they do, they created their own oral teaching and made up all kinds of new rules. And if you actually look into the Talmud, it's all about arguing with the Creator. Like they think they can argue with God. Like what a goofy situation. All right, so they think they can argue with Yah. God is actually a Babylonian deity for fortune and luck, which is why it's on the back of your dollar. But so it's just funny because just on its face, that shows such an astounding degree of narcissism and self-importance to think that you can actually argue with the Creator. Okay, so that's what the oral teachings are. Eventually, they're written down. The Talmud, you can look it up. And it's all these different debates amongst rabbis. And then basically, like, they actually say that the Creator needs their help to interpret what he means by his own laws. It's so goofy. Okay, so they added a bunch of stuff to the Sabbath and what you can't do on the Sabbath. And so Yeshua heals this man that was blind, but he heals him in a very specific way to break a bunch of these Talmudic laws, to make the point that no, that's actually not the actual instructions from the Creator. That's this man-made tradition, judgmental religious people. So it's just so funny because like this really overly religious, judgmental approach that so many people have, even a lot of modern Christians who claim to be like, oh, we're free, we have no law. They're some of the most judgmental people specifically about that topic. But that's the number one thing Yeshua rebuked the whole time. Okay, now we're going to start to bring it all back together. So he healed him in a very specific way. There was a Talmudic law that you can't break up dirt because that's working, because obviously you break up dirt when you're like, planting a garden or whatever, and harvesting, et cetera, et cetera. So like when you're planting food, that's like working. So you can't work the soil, you can't work the ground. And they said that you can't spit because it's in some mental gymnastics Jewish way, it's working. They said you can't heal people on the Sabbath as well. That's working. They said that you can't walk over a day's journey, that you can't go swim in, like a natural body of water. So what he did to cure this person who was blind was he bent down, he broke up the dirt, he spit on it to make it mud, and then he put it on the person's eyes and to heal him. He told him to walk over a day's journey and then go get in the body of water that was that far away, Galilee, I think. And then he gets out and he's no longer blind. So he broke all of their little like grabbler religious rules, right? On purpose. So people don't really know how profound that story in the scriptures really is. It requires a little bit of digging to find out, wow, this what seems super random and off the wall way to cure someone of blindness was done very specific. He was just mentally jujitsuing these people left and right. It's just such an epic compilation of texts to dive into. I encourage you to do so if you have never done that. Okay, so now we're going to go back to he's not like a respecter of persons, right? So I want you to get this context of this idea that they are the ones that have the secret knowledge and that they're special, right? And I say they, I mean, yeah, a lot of Jewish people, religious Jewish people, and that spills over into Israel, right? And so the reason that this is important is because when you look at, okay, let's give you examples of how they do this, right? So like with the nuclear weapons, okay? So again, we talked about whether or not that's true or not. Throw an asterisk on it. JFK comes and says, "Hey, don't do this." And so, to this day, it's well known that Israel has a nuclear program. Again, I don't know the specifics of what that means or how that works or exactly how effective those weapons can be. They have very powerful weapons that can destroy a lot of stuff. It doesn't really matter what it is, right? But the point is that we're being lied to and misled about this press a button and wipe out the world thing. And it's a very effective tool of fear propaganda, of course, to keep you compliant. Be like, well, whatever the government says, daddy government's keeping us safe away from the big bad boom boom. And so it scares people. But anyway, so Israel to this day is the only country that has a nuclear program. It's well known. The whole world knows that they do. They actually stole uranium and stole different blueprints and stuff from America. This is like admitted in declassified documents. They stole from us. JFK said, "Hey man, you got to show us what you're doing." They put up a whole fake room to deceive and trick him. And to this day, everyone knows it's a well-known open secret that they have a nuclear program, just not officially, and therefore they don't have to sign the agreement, right? This international agreement on what you can or cannot do with that capability or adhering to oversight and stuff like that. So think about that. Israel thinks that they're so much better than everyone else that they don't have to follow the international rules about weapons that everyone else has agreed to do to maintain peace, or definitely under the topic of nuclear weapons. Let's just entertain it is what they say it is, right? And then we would have a lot of questions about why they're lying so much. And of course, we know that little reified magical balls that don't exist called atoms definitely aren't doing what they're saying that they're doing to cause it to happen, but it doesn't matter because why does Israel think about that? Like, if it's what they say they are, if they are capable of the destruction they claim that they are, a bunch of people have gotten together and like, look, okay, we disagree on all kinds of things, but it's in everyone's best interest that we really rein in and have oversight of these weapons that are super destructive because it can end life for everyone. So it's in everyone's best interest that we kind of come to the table diplomatically and we make sure that we ensure safety in terms of nuclear weapons. Israel thinks that out of the entire world, they're the special boys that don't need to adhere to that. So therefore they can have a nuclear program. Everyone knows that they do. They actually stole from us to get it, but they don't have to adhere to it. There's one example of just like narcissistic ethnic supremacy, because that's the core of it, even when it comes to Israel, because it's an ethno state. Okay. So like, if this makes you uncomfortable or people want to call me anti-Semitic, it's just stupid and low IQ, right? Like any logical human in the world would have to say, okay, clearly hypocritic, double standard, that isn't cool, right? Hypocritical. So there's one example, right? If we go over to JFK again, what else he was doing before he got assassinated, and let's just say there's a lot of Israeli and Jewish fingerprints all over every aspect of JFK's assassination. And the people that do not fall under those categories were directly tied to them and working with and or for them, factually. So he says, look, man, if you're lobbying on behalf of a foreign country, then you have to adhere to our rules, right? And our oversights. So, like every other country. But no, they refuse to do so. And that's again because, for example, what is now AIPAC would have to show where the money's coming from. And we know where it's coming from. And there's no telling exactly what they get to hide by not having to adhere to that oversight or those regulations. But again, Israel thinks that they're the one exception, the one country that's so much better than everyone else. They don't have to adhere to the rule that applies to everyone, which is that if you're coming to lobby on behalf of a foreign country, that you actually have to adhere to an external committee that can kind of do oversight and then show us where you're spending your money and where it's coming from. There's just a couple examples. The reason this is all important is I want you to really soak this in, okay? So they don't have to they get to run wild with their nuclear program, whatever that does or does not mean. And no oversight. They're doing whatever they want to do because they pretend they don't have it, but everyone knows that they do have it. Again, it's an open secret. So they have something called the Samson option. This is crazy, bro. So basically, the way that Israel views it is this existence, like it has no purpose if they're not here. Because all the nations are here for them, to serve them. I am not just saying that, that is what they say. A lot of them. We use generalizations because we're not retarded. So, what's so crazy is think about this. You're starting to see a pattern here, right? So no matter what you think, we should all be able to agree, yeah, they gotta adhere to the same standards. And if they don't, why are they not? What are their intentions? What are they possibly capable of? Where could this go? That is why, yes, I talk about Israel quite a bit and have since I started my YouTube channel. It's incredibly important that people familiarize themselves with some of these things because, believe it or not, if there's an enemy in your presence, you may want to know that at the least to be informed with what could happen. So, the Samson option refers to a deterrent strategy primarily associated with Israel involving the use of nuclear weapons in a last-ditch effort to retaliate against an attack that threatens the nation's survival. It's essentially a nuclear last resort scenario aiming to cause catastrophic damage to the aggressor if Israel is faced with imminent annihilation. Okay, now, what it really is like if you're going to attack, if Israel ever feels like they could lose anything, this is like arbitrary. So say that America stops supporting them in Gaza. If they ever don't get their way or they feel like they are in threat of losing a battle or a war or anything that they feel they need, that before they lose, they will start just dropping nuclear bombs everywhere. No one's off limits. As in they would again nukes, again asterisk. But this is insane. Think about how insane you have to be. Well, it all of a sudden makes sense if you think, oh, well, if they literally believe that there are a small group of people that were specifically chosen and they're ethnically superior, so like, there's no point of people even living and existing on Earth if we're not here. So yeah, before you're able to take us out, we'll take everybody out with us. Oh, by the way, there's actually been many studies that show a predisposition for narcissism within this group, and of course, that would make sense, right? I mean, look at and like just boldly and brazenly so, do these things as if it isn't just like grossly narcissistic. Okay, anyway, so with all of that, there's a few different examples of some of the stuff that Israel does. Um, and I'll give you we'll talk about some more stuff that they've done that I feel like people should know about, and we're kind of bang, 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 go verify all this. You can fact check me. But check out this video in case you don't know. AIPAC, so there's like 100 seats. AIPAC has bought 93 of them And then 3 of the remaining seats are already super pro-Zionist. And they actually brag about this. Again, AIPAC, the lobbying group that lobbies on behalf of Israel, a foreign country, but they're the one exception that doesn't have to actually adhere to the oversight committee where they have to show where they're getting their money from, because we all know it's just Israel's government directly. What does that translate to? Israel's government is paying for all of our politicians, buying them all off, deciding who is in Congress. They're buying all of the politicians. Israel's government is very clearly directly purchasing and running our government. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's just easily verifiable information. So when someone says Israel runs America and then people spiral and they're like, that's so stupid. That's anti Semitic. That's so extreme. If anything, America runs Israel. Wrong. Okay. They literally bought all of our politicians and put them in their seats and openly brag about how they have like a 90 something percent success rate. Pretty crazy. So anyway, here is like a 1-minute clip kind of breaking some of it down.
What can America do to combat state-sponsored BDS? That's where AIPAC comes in. AIPAC has worked with Congress for decades to counter economic warfare against Israel. In the 1970s, we helped Congress combat the Arab League boycott by preventing American companies from complying. That boycott ultimately failed. In the 2000s, we urged Congress to make ending boycotts against Israel a condition of free trade with the United States. The Arab states of Oman and Bahrain agreed, and America now monitors their compliance. And today, we are succeeding again. As trade talks take place between the United States and the European Union, strong bipartisan majorities in Congress have set a clear standard. EU nations boycotting Israel risk forfeiting the benefits of free trade with America. This wouldn't happen without you, your support for AIPAC, and your commitment to advancing the U.S.-Israel alliance.
So that wasn't the exact video I thought I was playing right there, but that is the other video I wanted to show you guys, which is just crazy. And in the context of the boycotting Israel thing, what in the world? They just straight openly tell you. They openly tell you. And we'll watch a few more AIPAC commercials in case you're having some type of cognitive dissonance. And you should send this to somebody that seems to be in denial that Israel runs America or really loves America. And they can fact check everything that we're saying. We'll pull up a bunch of receipts and we'll do a pretty extensive stream. So, I mean, there they are just telling you, bro. They're just telling you, yeah, like you can't participate in free trade with America if you try to boycott Israel. What? I live in the United States, bro. I don't live in Israel. Like, what a simple concept. What an amazing concept, right? Let's focus on the country we live in and the society we live in, as literally there's major demographic shift happening. We're losing the very core of the culture that we built here, and it is the last one standing with free speech in the entire world, which means the culture that is here, like it, love it, hate the beginning of it, don't believe it, doesn't matter. You're alive right now. You live in a country. You actually reap the rewards and benefits of this country, and you have free speech. Okay, you have free speech, and then the second right outlined is in fact the ability to literally defend that free speech against any type of force of threat. And so, look, it just doesn't really matter what anyone has to say. America's the last one standing. The last thing you should do is root for America to go down, because if there's no longer even one country in the entire world that has free speech, meaning there are no hate speech laws that you can go to crime or for thinking and speaking things incorrectly, things that aren't approved, well, what happens? That's like a working definition of what's considered hatred that then, of course, extends into whatever else they want to ban when it comes to speech. And then basically it would turn into you need to go to the daily updated government website to know what you can or cannot say that day. And you'll be rounded up and prosecuted if you don't adhere to those regulations. Who would want to live in that world? And can we just break down how simple it is that we should have free speech? It's like some people have abhorrent worldviews, for sure. Some people are filled with hate. They have lots of hatred. They say very mean things. It hurts the fifis of some people. Okay, so wouldn't you want to know who those people are and what they really think? You want to foster an environment of where people cannot say what they really think, cannot show you their true colors. The last few months, I've basically been actively and intentionally employing strategies to pull out the true colors of people as I enter this full reset of my life and the circle around me and who has access to my energy and all of that. Sometimes you actually have to pull it out of people. If they're offering to, and this is just a very important aspect of life, you should want to know, are people truly loyal to you? Will they betray you? Are they a threat? What are their true intentions? What do they think of me? Right? You want to know that, especially if they have the ability to possibly cause you any type of harm. And these are elementary concepts, mind you. It's insane that I have to break them down. And so then you want people to be able to, if they're offering to just come show you, for example, you may want to leave your wallet on your desk when you take a shower because who you think is your friend, he may be a thief and you've heard a rumor that he likes to steal things, but you're like, man, I really hope not because this is a friend. I want to believe he's a friend. I want to pretend he has or believe he has my back. I'm going to leave the wallet there though when I take a shower, see if I counted the amount of money in there, see if he takes the money, right? It's like, well, I want to believe that my girl wouldn't cheat, but I'm going to I'm going to kind of sit back whenever and intentionally let her not know I know things to see if she is going to do something or not be loyal or lie to me about it. Like, you have to do that sometimes when people are close to you. You have to actually kind of play dumb, play ignorant, and let them try and trick you, let them try to lie to you so you know their true colors. We're talking about a scenario where people are volunteering their true intentions, right? So if you're so worried about someone's worldview of hatred, you think it's such a danger to society, the worst thing you could do is tell them that they're not allowed to speak about it or to say it. Because then what they do is they have to actually conspire in secret and in private, and then they're going to get much closer to some other type of way to express that, right? It'll inch closer and closer to actionable things. This is a very simple concept, right? Okay. So anyway, America's like the last one standing. So we need to, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're disillusioned with governments and stuff, me too. Politics is lame, right? That's why, what is the president? We not elected him, mean they selected it. I get it. They all do the same thing. They all make promises. It's all stupid. It's basically a TV show. Do you really need these goofballs that are typically degenerates and probably have all kinds of blackmail on them, reigning over you and telling you what to do? Are you not able to take care of yourself? Are you not mature now? If you actually look at society, this is why I'm not an anarchist. But, in the current world, really, people aren't able to do that. We actually do definitely need some order that's in place here. But anyway, no, it's kind of all over the place. But the point is that Israel is actively running our country, and at the same time, there's clearly some type of agenda that's being orchestrated to start to push us towards this ostensible justification for censoring our speech specific to criticism of Israel. That is so incredibly obvious, so glaringly obvious, and that's probably not good. We probably want to stop that while we still can. So what we need to do is make sure more people understand exactly who we're dealing with, right? What's going on here. So, and now we have covered another time where, we've covered another time exactly what the definition of anti-Semitism is in the previous stream, right? It's this working definition. That means that's just such a stupid term, because definition, if something has definition, if you're working out, right, and you get some definition, it's rigid. It's outlined. It has structure, right? That's what definition means by definition. So working malleable definition isn't a definition. Okay, but the definition of anti-Semitism is a working definition, so they can constantly update it as they go. And we covered that recently. We read through them, and some of them are just insane. It's implying that people aren't super loyal to America if they're dual citizens, or implying that some Jews in America may be more loyal to Israel than America. It's what some of them vocally say that proudly, So anyway, that Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, definition is what is referenced in all of these bills, all of these acts by all these people, right? The Florida passed one, it's just ridiculous. Uh, South Dakota, Texas, and that's what's referenced for all of these people as to what the definition of anti-Semitism is. And so they've already laid the groundwork, and it's a work. The groundwork is a working definition, and it is what is referenced constantly over and over and over. So do you not understand how incredibly dangerous and slippery of a slope that is? I mean, I'm gonna say you don't understand, but most of you do. But it's just wild that we're sitting here watching this slowly happen, and we have so many people on the quote unquote right just sitting back and watching it happen. When really, historically, it's the people on the left that are like, agree with me, or I want to shut you up, or I'm going to burn down your Tesla. So anyway, so what I want to I'll play this video for you. But so I want you to think about what exactly is going on here. What else has Israel done? So many things, right? You have like all kinds of things. USS Liberty, where they actually attacked our own ship, and that's because we busted Israel trying to set up a false flag attack so they could justify a war, like invading, I think, Egypt. And what's so crazy in the Egyptian waters? What's so crazy about this is that's what Israel always does. So what are they? They then run around and say, if you look into it, in the entire history of Israel, they've never been the aggressor. Israel has never been the aggressor, except for, you mean the actual founding of Israel, where you killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people to take where they live, because Britain, who gave away that land that wasn't theirs. It's just so insane, right? It's all so insane. And then it was a plan for a while because, again, they rushed in the Schofield Bible, which was the first interpretive Bible with tons of annotation down at the bottom, and they put all kinds of commentary notes at the bottom to then say, hey, I know you don't really see this, but trust me, this is what it's really saying. It's just not quite in there very obviously, so we got you. Let's add commentary at the bottom. And it's there's a physical state of Israel that's being prophesied that's going to be founded in the future before the return of Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah. And then they say, oh, look, it was fulfilled. It was fulfilled, right? Like the founding of Israel in the 40s was the fulfillment of prophecy, of our brand new made up prophecy, with our brand new Bible, with our brand new interpretation and doctrine, with our brand new commentary Bibles that we put into the ministry schools to now give you brand new doctrines of brand new churches, etc. One of the lights went up. Okay, so if we move forward a little bit, to give you another example. Why did I just randomly go off? Super weird. So another example of something that Israel's done, because, like, again, USS Liberty, I mean, they literally attacked the United States. And that was because of the false flag, because that's what Israel always does. And it is, you got to think about it. It's like the most efficient way ever to, if you wanted to say, go fight someone, go destroy them, go steal their land, implement a regime change, whatever. The number one way, the most effective way to do that would be to carry out an attack, claim it was that person that you want to attack who did it, so thus justifying whatever you go do afterwards as retaliatory. It's called a false flag, right? Israel and Mossad is like the master. They are the masters of false flag attacks. That's why it's so obvious that October 7th was a false flag. And what do most people do? They fall into this trap of arguing that, okay, well, sure, this happened on October 7th and it was really bad, but the response is not equal, right? It's over the top, basically. But why are we just granting the story that we're told about October 7th and that attack? Believe it or not, Israel doesn't just abandon their gates. A border that's so secure that witnesses will tell you, even former IDF soldiers will tell you, that a rabbit can't even go within like a mile without being seen. They watch that border like it is like nobody's business, right? Like they hawk the border, and all of a sudden there's an actual attack with people coming in on gliders, and they're nowhere to be found. They abandoned posts, nowhere to be found, didn't respond for hours and hours. Really, bruh? Really? Because, yeah, they set that up. Like, even on paper, and admittedly, they created Hamas, or they helped build them and fund them, but they set the whole thing up. And then they stepped away and wanted it to happen. And so what did they then do? They actually, the Hannibal Directive and the Samson Option, they began to implement the Hannibal Directive and started blowing up their own cars and stuff like that on October 7th. So anyway, they're the masters of false flags. And if you look into 9/11, again, got Israel's fingerprints all over it. False flag, they blame it on who they want. What do? They go in there and they take over the banks, or they go over there and implement centralized banking systems from Rothschilds in all the countries that didn't previously have them. And if you really look into it, just in case you guys don't know, basically other countries called America out for not having gold backing up our dollar. And so what we had to do is we had to move away from the gold standard. So then we created this new concept of the petrodollar. And what we did was say, oh, well, America should still be the world reserve currency, meaning the one currency that's accepted all around the world and that everything is basically valued against, right? We are still the world reserve currency because now we have this new idea of the petrodollar, this oil that's backing it. So now we have to gain access and control of oil to maintain world supremacy, basically, as a country. So that's the core tenet of why all of these wars in the Middle East actually happen. If you notice, it's always when some country or leader of a country dares to suggest they're going to move to a gold standard. They're going to move away from the US dollar world reserve currency. As soon as they do that, conveniently they happen to attack America, or they happen to attack America's allies, or there happens to be intel that claims they're going to do that, or that they attempted to do that. And then what do? We go in, we just destroy people, including women and children, and completely wreck their entire civilization, and then implement a regime change. You guys get it. Kind of old news, right? But what a coincidence that all the countries that we do that to are the ones that didn't have centralized banking systems, are all the ones that are on the list that is public knowledge that Israel had of the countries that need to go down, that they consider their threats. If you look at a map, and I'll find it in a second, of all the countries that America has attacked in the Middle East, it's literally just everywhere around Israel. And why? It's because Israel wants what's called Greater Israel. So this is not something that's just like, oh, well, it's boring too now. We're talking about a country that has mastered the art of subversion and controlling America, and their goal is to take over all kinds of surrounding land in Israel. It's called Greater Israel. Okay, so I think we should probably familiarize ourselves with some of their plans and some of the stuff that they do and how they do it, and then we should probably call it out before laws get passed and say we can't do it anymore. And what I would say is they want to pass free speech, or like hate speech laws, whatever, anti-Semitism laws, before they really go all out trying to get Greater Israel. That's what they want to do. And when you hear stuff like that, like, put it in really simple terms, there's a country in the Middle East that wants to just, by force, basically commit genocide and take out everyone around them and steal all the land and their homes and where they live. They want to steal it from them because they believe they're ethnically entitled to it, and that the Creator gave it to them, so they can now go and kill all women and children in the surrounding areas because they're not even really on the same like bar or level as them when it comes to like value, human value. There's a country that wants to go take over all the surrounding areas by force against their will, displacing all the people that have lived there, no matter how long they've lived there, no matter how far their ancestry goes. And they want to put in laws to make sure that people, like say in America where we have free speech, cannot openly criticize and analyze and vocal opposition to their endeavor to do that, to found the Greater Israel. Imagine a world where people are legitimately scared of making this stream, or they could go to jail, while we're sitting back and watching Israel do what they're doing in Gaza to all these countries around them, and then they just do some false flag, blame it on Iran, and they pull America in, and now America has got even more blood on their hands while we're sitting here, but we're somehow not allowed to criticize them. I mean, that is not like a far-fetched projection of the near future, and there's just gonna be a few people when history reflects that we're standing up very vocally, losing everything, being demonetized and kicked off of everything. Like a lot of us have spoken about Israel for many, many years, long before kind of everyone did, right? And people have been debanked and kicked off of PayPal and Venmo and Airbnb and just like the most random censorship ever for calling this place out, calling out a disproportionate representation of a specific ethnic group, Jews and Israel, right? And like you can't even discuss like I think that that's such such an absurd premise on its face. It's like, how do people not just immediately agree? It's so weird, and it just really elucidates the power of repetitive propaganda and appeals to emotion and religious indoctrination. That's really the core of the conservative support, blind support for Israel, right? So, okay, something else that they've done because we could be here forever, and we will be here for some hours, right? But for hours and hours and hours talking about everything that Israel has done. And so I'll show some more receipts here going forward. But so something else that they did, and I want you to really get an idea of, and I'm going to try to play a video and see if I can fix this light. I kind of don't want to mess with it because sometimes it starts all going haywire. But um, something else that Israel did, you guys can let me know if the lighting's kind of bad. It's hard to tell on my end. Anyway, so obviously you know about Jeffrey Epstein, right? And Epstein, what does he do? He implements this like honeypot blackmail operation, the sex trafficking blackmail operation. And Ian Carroll breaks it down pretty good in this video, so I'll just play this. But just quickly for like the concise expedited version here, um, Bill Clinton and your boy Jeffrey Epstein were boys, right? I mean, Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House 17 times while Bill Clinton was president. And obviously, we know from the flight logs, Bill Clinton was on that plane a lot, Lolita Express, Jeffrey Epstein's plane. We obviously know Jeffrey Epstein was, again, working on behalf of Mossad and was trafficking all kinds of minors and then getting politicians to basically sleep with these minors, seemingly, and then have blackmail on them, right? And therefore, then Israel can get whatever they want. They can completely control America. They can ensure who votes, how they vote. They can control the president. And I mean, just look what's going on right now, right? RFK writes an entire book about measles vaccines and then comes out like super pro measles vaccine recently. Well, they obviously have dirt on him and he's like a degenerate sex addict. And so, of course, they got him, right? And he's been on that plane and plays dumb, but you get in office and all of a sudden you switch up. And I think a lot of people, super truthers, as I call them, they think that like there's this super powerful elite group that controls everything and everything is perfectly sophisticated and meticulously crafted. And I was talking to Alex Zek about that when we were talking, we were chatting. Like, nah, bro, you're giving way too much power to this unidentified group. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that they kind of run around with their heads cut off. A lot of them are kind of blinded by ego and narcissism and some of their like kind of degenerative habits. And their main thing they put effort into is trying to get you to believe that, trying to get you to believe that they have that much power, that you're that helpless, when you're not, because they obviously know that you're not, or they wouldn't put so much effort into constantly convincing you of things so they can pull off different operations and achieve different types of deception. They're always trying, everything is geared around getting the consent of the people. But hey, if we weren't powerful and they had complete and total control and there was no hope, they wouldn't have to do that, right? So that, I mean, it's very obvious that we have tons of power. And you can just look into all kinds of like studies and quote unquote experiments, right? But demonstrations and things like that of the power of the consciousness, the mind, and collective consciousness. It's insane. Like we know just like a singular mind is incredibly powerful, right? And you can definitely look into like near death experiences, NDEs. Okay, so that's a whole different stream there, but anyway, so they manipulate the consciousness of people so that they can get the consent of the people, which is proof, obviously, that they're not near as powerful as people try to act like they are. That was the point. So if you think about it, it's not as black pilled and gloom and doom as people want to think it is. It's like RFK was vocally speaking out against that. And then when he gets in office, clearly someone hit him up and was like, when I say clearly, I don't know, allegedly, and we're like, hey, buddy, guess what all we have on you, right? So what you're actually now going to do is you're going to pivot, you're going to go 180, and you're going to now stop saying this and this and this, and you're going to promote these things. And he did it. He did it, right? So it isn't like RFK sits at the table with this super powerful elite group, drink cognac, and then plan world domination. In order to believe that, you have to think that so many people are in on this huge conspiracy to run the world, and it's just like completely deluded and unrealistic and kind of schizophrenic. I mean, I'm not I don't wanna be derogatory, but what I'm trying to say is that it's just super paranoid and you're giving your power away, right? It just that doesn't even logically make any sense. What makes a lot more sense is that, well, there's all kinds of built-in parameters and compartmentalization in the system for you to even get first of all, to even want to be a politician, you're probably a narcissist, probably, like, psychopathic in many ways, and then by the time you can actually get there successfully, you're gonna have to sell out to places like Israel, and then you're gonna be invited certain places, and they're not gonna really let you get over the hump unless they got some dirt on you. And so, as long as you're just playing ball and conforming to what all the other people tell you that you need to do, and you're good to go. Maybe we'll give you like give you a little handler that kind of tells you what to do here and there. They do all this. They do this with Hollywood and stuff, and they looks like they use P Diddy to get a lot of the dirt on them. And the way that that works, for example, it's like not all the artists, not all the musicians are in on some grand conspiracy. Why would you ever let they quote unquote they view a lot of these people as like lower end, you know? Do you think that they're sitting in a room and they're like, "Oh, man, Jay-Z is like," and Jay-Z is like maybe one of the only exceptions that maybe got kind of further up there, but do you think that they're listening to, like, Cardi B? Do you think that they're like, "Oh, man, Cardi B, come here, we gotta tell you our plans about world domination." Of course not, bro, you know? It's just they get dirt on these people, and then they normally have a manager, and the manager says, "Hey, you don't need to say this." They have, like, a PR person that says, "This is gonna look bad. You're gonna lose brand deals. You're gonna lose your money here." People just conform to it. And that's the way that they control them. If they ever say, "No, actually, I'm going to speak about this," they ever make a tweet that they shouldn't say, if there was ever a topic that they weren't told not to talk about or whatever, and then they launch an attack on them. They have all kinds of dirt on them. They went to a party and woke up and didn't know what they had done, whatever. And that's how it all works. And it makes the most sense. It's very simple. And I think there's a very dark underbelly to all of that, but that's again a whole nother stream to kind of talk about really like the darkness of the blackmail of some of these celebrities and some of these powerful politicians. I don't think it's just sexual degeneracy, or sleeping with an underage person, or someone being, doing like gay stuff or whatever. It's I think there's a darker portion of it as well, but that's for another day. Okay, so if we fast forward up to kind of more modern times, we get back to what's going on, and he's about to break this down. But if you have like, so Bill Clinton, there's a spy named Jonathan Pollard. He gets arrested. He's an Israeli spy. He was attributed to all kinds of various leaks, and then it was very unpopular in America. Like 85 to 90% of America did not want him extradited and sent back to Israel because he's a traitor, obviously. And so Netanyahu and Israel were like demanding that they send Jonathan Pollard, the Israeli spy, back, and then he couldn't because all of America was like, hell no, basically. And then what happens? We get a little warning shot with Monica Lewinsky where, he's like getting head from her in the office and he has all kinds of like sexual phone calls with her. So then it comes out that, Netanyahu apparently has like dozens of tapes of these inappropriate phone calls that he has, and I even attempted to blackmail him or whatever. So, long story short, he's buddies with Epstein, probably a sexual degenerate, has done some pretty crazy stuff. They got blackmail, they got dirt on him, and then an Israeli spy gets caught. He's like, "Okay, send us our guy back. Don't worry, we got a lot more that you haven't found yet, but we want our guy back." And then they're not getting their spy back, so they're like, "Are you serious? You must have forgotten all of the crazy stuff you did, and you must not have realized that we have it all documented. So send us our guy back." Okay, well, here we're going to give you a little warning shot, boom, Monica Lewinsky, who was coincidentally Jewish and, oh, what do you know, a dual citizen with Israel, right? And so, and this is why, especially when I kind of break some of the stuff down, like going forward, I feel like you always have to be super careful, even with like females. You got to be careful, because if you have any type of power of position of power or something, dude, they just slip someone in on you. Anyway, so okay, we'll let Ian kind of break some of this down, and he covers a lot of what I just covered, but also it kind of shows some of the receipts on the screen. Sorry, I see you guys said no audio. I see it. Stepping away to get a drink. I'm glad that I checked this chat real quick. What was that? That was a whole minute. I'm sorry. Lo siento. Okay? I'm sorry. You know what I did find out though? That with one of these programs, someone else can help run my stream. I'm gonna definitely get someone in on the team, maybe 1 or 2 people. So yeah. And then I'm setting up OBS for transition. The stream is gonna have way better quality. Okay, so that wasn't working because it wasn't in a Google window. So we'll fix that real quick. Once I play this video, guys, just give me a thumbs up. Confirm that you guys can hear the audio. In the world. There we go.
So, most people that I know that are in your camp are also Trump supporters. And Trump is
he's atrocious on Israel.
I would say he's pro-Israel.
Yeah.
Atrocious isn't necessarily the word I would use.
As is Biden and Kamala. Like, don't you think it's kind of weird that all the powerful parties, that AIPAC has bought 93 out of 100 of our senators their seats, and 3 of the other 6 are already pro-Zionist? Like, why do they have to do that if Israel's stance is so defensible? Why do they have to buy all these people their seats in order to make sure that everyone is pro-Israel? Why do they have to have a literal child sex trafficking ring that is targeting the President of the United States, Prince Andrew, celebrities all throughout Hollywood and everywhere else? Why do they have to have Jeffrey Epstein sex, blackmail, trafficking kids on behalf of Mossad?
I mean, we're jumping to some conclusions here.
No, we're not.
I think
that is like pretty close to like the amount of depth of factual evidence. A, that Jeffrey Epstein was Mossad, and B, that he was running a sexual blackmail operation. Like, I've got books and books on that. I could go on that for hours. Straight up to like Monica Lewinsky. You remember Monica Lewinsky? This is a good example of one that surprised a lot of people. Monica Lewinsky was Jewish, right? And so it sounds like, oh my God, a fucking Jewish conspiracy theory, right? Monica Lewinsky, so Bill Clinton was Jeffrey Epstein's, one of his primary targets was Bill Clinton. Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House 17 times during Bill Clinton's presidency. They were very close. He helped set up the Clinton Global Initiative. Clinton was clearly, like, he's been accused directly by Virginia Giuffre, went to the island on the plane. And then, during Bill Clinton's presidency, when Jonathan Pollard was an Israeli spy that they wanted us to release, and the Oslo Accords were getting signed, which was a critical peace deal about where the borders were going to be, suddenly, this Jewish woman, this scandal about this sexual thing with this Jewish woman with Bill Clinton just gets leaked to the press. She's been giving him blowjobs and having phone sex with him, right? That is the exact kind of thing you would see if a Mossad sexual blackmail operation were to fire a warning shot. It's like, yo, we've got all sorts of stuff on you. We got way more than this. And here's one. Boom, Monica Lewinsky. And she just happens to be Jewish. And it's like, that's kind of a coincidence. You can't infer that Monica Lewinsky was part of the Jeffrey Epstein thing just because she's Jewish. It's like, you're right. You cannot. But then when you start to look into it, you realize that you can find reporting from Israeli publications about how Benjamin Netanyahu just happened to have like 30 hours of phone tape recordings of them talking, of Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton having phone sex, and he threatened Bill Clinton. He tried to blackmail Bill Clinton with those recordings in order to get him to release Jonathan Pollard. And he still didn't do it because it was super, like, not popular in America. But it's like, that is clearly a Jeffrey Epstein operation, Monica Lewinsky. Like, clearly Mossad and Israel are blackmailing the President of the United States with a child sex trafficking ring.
What would be their motive? What do you think he was going to do that they wanted to stop? If it is indeed Mossad intentionally targeting
Jonathan Pollard. He wasn't extraditing Jonathan Pollard, and Jonathan Pollard is one of the most egregious leaks in American intelligence history. Jonathan Pollard was a deep cover spy for Israel, deep in the American government. It had all kinds of leaks, had given all kinds of secrets, military secrets and such, to Israel. Like, Israel has been spying on us, stealing from us, and attacking us for a very long time. They stole nuclear weapons from us. Israel has a nuclear program that they have never announced to the world, that they built in secret with stolen technology from the United States, and they did a weird deal with France. And then John F. Kennedy was like, fuck these guys, you're not allowed to have this, I want to inspect it. And he was pushing for inspections of it when he died. And to this day, Israel has nukes that are officially, they don't exist, but the whole world knows they exist. And they have not signed the treaties that everyone else has signed, because they should, right? And they have an official doctrine that is the unofficial official doctrine called the Samson Option, that if Israel starts to fail and die, if we don't defend them, it's like, if y'all don't help us survive, we will nuke everyone. That is like their policy. That is their nuclear policy. And everybody knows.
What does everyone mean? Everyone attacking them? They're
They're allies.
They're not going to nuke America.
It is.
Come on.
Look it up. Look it up.
Oh, well, I'm definitely going to look that. I don't believe that one. I'm going to look that one
Look up. This is not just like some made up conspiracy theory. John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States, was pushing for inspections of Israel's nuclear facilities, and they set up an entirely fake facility with a fake control room and brought the nuclear inspectors into a fake control room. And JFK famously said, quote, "These motherfuckers lie to me constantly."
In a world. But yeah, obviously we just covered a lot of that. Oh man, Israel's our greatest ally, Anton. Haven't you read the Bible? That I haven't read, but my preacher read it for me. By the way, so we're gonna have a dope show Wednesday, super dope show about the power of the mind and what your doctor doesn't know. Definitely tune into that 8 p.m. Eastern. And put it on your calendar, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. You do not want to miss it. It is going to be dope. We have a dope guest. And he wrote a dope book. So, cool stuff. Maybe I'll pull it up for you and plug the book here in a bit too. So maybe you guys can try to order it and get it in and look at it before the stream. All right. So, what I find to be crazy is that, again, the whole internet was talking about this bill. Let me see if I can do this really quickly. Nah. I have to like reset the whole key light. It's like a whole thing. I think you guys can see me decently. Whatever. I guess I'll do a couple housekeeping things right now as well. So also, we got the summit coming up. The summit's going to be I believe the 31st and the 1st. So May 31st, June 1st, and tickets will be for sale here soon. Going to be super epic. Definitely keep an eye on that. It's going to be very cool. You don't want to miss it. So announcements for that coming up soon. Also, maybe go to ethericsstate.com, get some blends. If you want to partake in the fast, I think we're going to do that mid-month, maybe 17th, 18th. So we're going to participate in the community fast. Kind of plan on for like 17th, 18th tentatively. All right. You know what we should do? We should just look through some of this nonsense. Our greatest allies. What a joke. Okay. Here we go. Mark Levin, you don't know what you're talking about, Charlie. The bill merely extends the Anti-Boycott Act of 2018. Oh, let's check that out. We just read one from 2022, signed by President Trump to international organizations. What causes anti-Semitism is anti-Semites, bigots, Jew haters. They don't need excuses, as you state here. Your post is absurd. Well, what's so funny is you call anyone that questions anything that you guys do anti-Semites. You weirdo. You loser. Oh, they're talking about me. Oh. You know, what's so funny is I was talking to the boys last night. I'm like, yeah, the only thing you need to do to really perfect the accent is just to put yourself in the state of mind, like really perfect the art of sounding like you're always under attack. That's all you got to do. All right, let's check this out. It's just so crazy. Like, why does Israel have their own little special boy laws in our country? A bill to amend the Export Administration Act of 1979 to include in the prohibitions on boycotts. Let's see if this is any better. I guess we can do this. Boycotts against allies of the U.S., boycotts fostered by international governmental organizations against Israel, and to direct the Export-Import Bank of the United States to oppose boycotts against Israel and for other purposes. What? The bill declares that Congress opposes the United Nations Human Rights Council Resolution of 2016, which urges countries to pressure companies to divest from or break contracts with Israel, and encourages full implementation of the U.S.-Israel Strategic Partnership of 2014 through enhanced government-wide coordinated U.S.-Israel scientific and technological cooperation in civilian areas. The bill amends the Export Administration Act of 79 to declare that it shall be U.S. policy to oppose requests by foreign countries to impose restrictive practices or boycotts against other countries friendly to the U.S. or restrictive trade. You know what's so funny? The bill prohibits any U.S. person engaged interstate or foreign commerce from supporting any request by a foreign country to impose any boycott against a country that is friendly to the U.S. and that is not itself the object of any form of boycott pursuant to United States law or regulation, or any boycott fostered or imposed by any international governmental organization against Israel, or any request by any international governmental organization to impose such a boycott. Why does Israel have to be specified and given its special little law and its special little section? Now, what they try to spin is that it's no big deal because it's already a law. Yeah, it's already nonsense. And they try to hide behind like, oh, it's in tandem with other international organizations. But in this other one that was being proposed, it specifically talks about individuals as well. Specifically, right? And then we covered in the recent thing what's going on with like Trump and how when he first gets in, he's like, yo, defining anti-Semitism. You can go to whitehouse.gov and read it. You can see like all these different laws that Trump has passed about anti-Semitism and like cracking down on it. And then we watch this speech of what he says about the death penalty. Okay, so let me show you guys this right here. All right. In case you don't believe me. You know, I feel like I gotta be careful. Well, we'll watch some of this and then I'll just kind of react. We're good on Rumble. The Bible often uses phrases that are not literal. I don't know the relevance. See if I miss it. Look at super chats real quick. Thanks for your courage, Austin. Yeah, no problem. Low Flyer 77. Thank you so much. Awakening Minds. Could Jesus write
Why did he rely on others to pin his words? The Bible belongs to Coptic Jews. No such thing as God, just your connection to nature. That's such an incredibly ignorant position. No such thing as God, just your connection to nature. Okay, I gotta do it. I gotta do it to him. I gotta do it to him. Dang, bro. You could have just chilled out, enjoyed the show, but you had to get this work. And you did so arrogantly. I want to remember that energy. Could Jesus write? Why did he rely on others to pin his words? The Bible belongs to Coptic Jews. No such thing as God, just your connection to nature. Okay. I'm going to do this pretty quickly, though. All right. So we know in the physical world, the realm of science, that we have some natural laws. Now, natural laws aren't specifically science, as science is actually the endeavor to determine a cause and effect relationship. So you have a naturally occurring observable phenomena that's your dependent variable. Then you have a presumed cause or independent variable. You're going to directly manipulate and vary that to verify if it is or is not, in fact, the cause of that dependent variable, the phenomena that you originally observed and are trying to figure out. You also have independent variables that you need to manipulate and control during these experiments so that you can actually isolate the independent variable or the presumed cause. So the three constituent parts of a scientific experiment is dependent, independent, and control variables. That is specifically science. So natural law kind of falls out from underneath that because we can't necessarily figure out the independent. We can't independently access and vary, right, the independent variable of some of these phenomena. But they're just natural laws, meaning that they just happen always, all the time. We can observe them. We know them to happen. So it isn't some type of scientific endeavor or discovery. So a bit of a distinction there. Important distinction. Doesn't matter. Natural laws undeniably exist. Okay. And they're extremely important. And they're like the most solid things in terms of physics, for example. So natural law, second law of thermodynamics, and first law of thermodynamics. Let's talk about it. So matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Okay, that's the first law. So matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. All right, I'm just about to just destroy any atheist. It's kind of laughable. Okay, and you're saying, you might say you're not an atheist. You are an atheist. You just said there is no God. Okay, so the first law of thermodynamics is that matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Okay, cool. So we obviously see matter and energy here in the world, or what people call the universe, whatever. So we're just going to use the word universe. Okay, so how did that get here if it can't be created nor destroyed? Well, okay, we have a couple options. Option A is it was just always here. So it didn't have to be created nor destroyed because it's just always been here. Okay, and then option B is it was created or destroyed. That's a true dichotomy. There's really no other option other than that. Okay, now let's say that because you think there is no God, then you have to go with the first option, right? Which is that matter and energy has always been here so that you don't violate natural law, the first law of thermodynamics to be specific. Okay, let's go look at the second one, which is that in pretty simple terms, systems seek equilibrium, right? So like coffee, it starts to cool off based on its surrounding temperature. You know, heat goes to cold, you have pressure systems that equalize, etc. Systems are always seeking equilibrium. So entropy increases, thus the amount of usable energy decreases. Okay, this is just a well-known established fact. It's a natural law, right? I mean, to actually quote, I believe it was Arthur Eddington. That's from the Eddington quote unquote experiment that wasn't an experiment and ended up having a lot of fraudulent reporting. Anyway, so pretty renowned guy, Arthur Eddington. I like the quote, is the point. I don't really care about his authority, but he said, look, you know, it's okay if sometimes observations don't necessarily match your theory, because a lot of times we end up figuring out that there's further observations and we end up making new discoveries. I'm paraphrasing. But if your theory goes against the second law of thermodynamics, it's in serious trouble, right? Like it just can't be true. Okay. And this is because, again, everything seeking equilibrium, entropy increasing, and thus the amount of usable energy decreasing is just such a solid staple of existence in the material world that it's indisputable. And to put that in really simple terms, if equilibrium is being sought, it requires energy. The actual process of seeking equilibrium uses energy. Thus, the total amount of usable energy is decreasing. Okay, if the total amount of usable energy is decreasing, it's decreasing from a beginning point. You cannot just infinitely regress, right? And then even Stephen Hawking, he kind of brings up this point and he uses the analogy of human progression, which obviously evolution is nonsense, but let's just say that you believe that there is evolutionary progression, or even just human progression in terms of societal progression. You have to start somewhere to then progress from. You can't just go all the way back to nothing, or you can't just infinitely go back. If you're going to progress, you progress from a certain point. If something's going to decrease, it decreases from a certain amount. If it's going to decrease, it decreases from a beginning. So now, if we look at the second law, again, very quick, concise summary here. First law of thermodynamics, matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Second law of thermodynamics, right? These are, again, very indisputable natural laws. The amount of entropy will increase, thus the amount of usable energy will decrease. Or, yeah, so very simple. Because then you get into like isolated systems. It's not just isolated, it's isolated natural systems. Isolated is more conceptual anyway, and idealistic. Okay, so summary. First law of thermodynamics, matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Second law, entropy will increase, the amount of usable energy decreases. So what was our question? Well, there's obviously matter and energy here in the quote unquote universe. How did it get here? If it can't be created nor destroyed, then we would have to say, okay, it's just always been here. We go to the second law and we see, okay, wait, the amount of usable energy in the quote unquote universe is always decreasing. That means it's had a beginning point to decrease from. Therefore, we go back to our first question. We can't say the matter and energy has always been here, because we just now proved that there had to be a beginning. So now what option are we left with, again, to answer the first question? The only option is that the matter and energy was created. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we know that based on the natural law, matter and energy cannot be created. So now we need to invoke something that's attributed to a force outside of the laws of nature. What is that by definition? Supernatural. So now we must evoke something external to the material world, eternal, external to the confinement of time, and supernatural, not limited to the confinement of natural law. So now, to even explain the very existence of the matter and energy here, for you to invoke the word nature, you have to invoke an external agent that is supernatural. Okay. And then, of course, you're going to get into, okay, if it created, what is the antecedent of creation? It's a creator. So now you need an external, eternal, supernatural creator. Objectively, there absolutely is a God. There has to be, and there's no way around it. Okay. Gregory May, Austin, you're looking into the wrong camera. I'm looking up at my screens. The camera's right here. In a world. I kind of like this setup more because, like, I like being able to look up at the screens, but then the camera's kind of lower than me. So, like I said, I didn't get it perfect. But, you know, I'm not just going to stare at the camera the whole time. Like, hey, what's going on? Did you guys know Israel's actually not our greatest ally and they totally suck and they're just a bunch of grabblers that have an ethno-state, but then actually convince us that we should be guilty of the idea that we would ever have in-group preference, as they then flood our entire borders with major demographic shift, and then they pretend to be the victim the entire time while they're actually just being the subversive handlers behind the scenes that are causing it all to happen, and then they just act like they have no idea what's going on, and then for some reason they're always just unjustly attacked. How dare you? Okay, we'll watch some of this and then I'll kind of narrate it. I know that, you know, some people weren't ready for that or wanted to hear that, but I know that you can present that argument very simply and quickly. I just was trying to be pretty thorough, right? But it's just like, you look at the laws of thermodynamics, matter and energy can't be created nor destroyed. So you could say it's always been here. But when you look at the second law, you realize no, because energy is decreasing. Therefore, it had to start somewhere. So we know there was a beginning. So now that means that there had to be created energy and matter according to the first law, which means something supernatural had to do it. And, you know, if matter was created, then what is the antecedent or necessary requirement of creation? It's a creator. So now again, you have an external, eternal, supernatural creator. That maybe take 20 seconds. It's the most lethal death blow to atheism that exists. And then, of course, you can get into, they'll start ambiguously appealing to just nonsense, just arbitrary appeals to possibility, red herring fallacies, you know, all kinds of nonsense. It's like, okay, man, you know, you seem to have way more faith in what you mock in terms of someone being religious or believing in God. How dare you? Let's check out this video.
Why would Israel have anything to do with JFK?
Who was Meyer Lansky and Mo Dowlitz with? Dude, they wanted dirt on him. Let me ask you another question. Did you find it unusual that our boy Epstein, as soon as they broke into his apartment, what did they find over the mantle? A picture of...
By the way, just a quick reminder, I do appreciate support on YouTube, but the best way to support is kofi.com/Witsit. That's ko-fi.com/Witsit. I'll pin it in the chat, and then I'll read all of those tips in a second. Working on a better tip page, working on a brand new embedded private stream for the members. So stay tuned. Yeah, kofi.com/Witsit. The support is appreciated in advance. The Grabblers take 30%. I don't even like to promote, necessarily directly support YouTube like that. I probably should start turning the super chats off, to be honest. But let's go back to the video.
Bill Clinton in Monica Lewinsky's blue dress.
Right.
Dude, the Mossad is about having information on the states.
Right.
I'll give you another one for your conspiracy theory, because we didn't talk about it yet.
Yeah, I'm just not buying the connection.
How'd they get paid off for JFK? Do you know how they got paid off?
Who get paid off?
The Israel people.
I don't think Israel was involved. I don't know. I haven't seen anything compelling
you know
for
anything
Israel
about
to be involved in JFK's assassination.
Well, I do. I know they were involved. Okay? Those guys, Jack Ruby was a Mossad agent. The Jewish mob was involved. Everybody in the mob was involved for different reasons, but they were involved. How'd they get paid off? Let's talk about the payoff.
I think it's possible that
you don't want to go there, do you?
No, I do. But I want to explain. I think it's possible that Israel was involved in the process, maybe downstream. But I think top level, I've had this guy on here multiple times. His name's John Newman. He's the guy that everybody who writes JFK books, they all write their books based on his work. He's the guy who's read the over 1 million declassified documents on JFK. He's been studying it his whole life. And his theory of the whole thing is that what happened in Dealey Plaza is all a distraction. He thinks that Dealey Plaza, the reason everybody talks about Dealey Plaza is because it's the exciting thing to talk about. It's where the bullet hit his head, and everything that led up to that is the important part of it.
That's because your boy Newman doesn't know the key pieces. What's the key pieces? What was the payoff? You remember back in early 1960s, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yes.
And then we had all the shit that was getting ready to come with the Jews and the Arabs about the war in 67 and all that. And Israel was really worried about themselves. And they told Kennedy, they first told Eisenhower, that we need a bomb. Our Jewish scientists gave you the fucking bomb. We want the bomb. Eisenhower told them to go fuck themselves. Guess what?
I forgot to say, weak word alert or whatever, but this is a pretty good breakdown. I mean, most people don't even know this. Like, you've seen all these movies about the mob. Have you ever heard of the Jewish mob? What's up with that? Why don't we never hear about that? Question. A lot of these virtue signaling weirdos, they get super triggered when you say, I'm just asking questions. That's all we're doing. Like, really? Why are we being lied to about what happened to JFK? Why did they constantly try to go after him? Because he was simply trying to hold them to the same standard every other foreign country has to be held to. Why does Israel consistently think that they are entitled? I want to break this down one more time. I want you to think about this. You may be like, that's pretty crazy. Israel seems to keep on having a double standard with everything. They just get special boy treatment all the time. Why do they think they're entitled to that? Well, again, Israel is an ethno-state. It's a very important detail when you realize that the primary religion, of course, of a Jewish ethno-state is Judaism, and that you understand they have an interpretation of the Bible that says that they are chosen, although the scriptures are very explicit that Israel is not a specific people group that you track through your mother. First of all, it's the paternal line, the patriarchy. They track through the actual paternal line, the fathers in the scriptures, not the mothers. So they just invert everything. Beware of those in the end who claim to be Jews, but are in fact synagogue of Satan. But this is the point. Regardless of who they are, what tribes they are, whatever, the Creator is not a respecter of persons, but they believe that He is, and they believe that they were chosen and that they're ethnically chosen. That means that their physical being, their ethnic background, their ancestry, their quote unquote genetics. We won't get into that. Maybe we can get Tom Cowan on to kind of shatter some of your guys' worldview with quote unquote DNA. But they believe that they're special boys, basically, right? Like literally, they believe that they are the superior ethnicity on the world. They have an intrinsically ethnic supremacist worldview. Now you can understand why the state of Israel then walks around with their chest out as if they are entitled to special treatment, right? That's because they're an ethno state. They believe that their ethnicity is literally superior, set apart, above all other ethnicities. They actually believe that they are entitled to all other nations to serve them. So they scoff and laugh at the idea that you're gonna, you're talking about having an oversight committee to watch us. What? No, we have our spies in your country to give us oversight because we run you. Right? Again, AIPAC brags about how many of the politicians that they purchase. So I just want you to think about that. It's you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it, right? It's like unacceptable. Look, if you want to have that belief, whatever, cool, bro, leave us out of it. Actually, we're not going to go die for your stupid wars anymore. Again, America's not completely innocent in this again because we basically we got called out for not actually having gold backing up our dollar, so we ditched the gold standard. Then we introduced the petrodollar, and so now they had to constantly have ongoing conflict in the Middle East where you could actually have this access to immense quantities of oil to back that up, and just overall control over the facilitation of said oil. And then anytime that someone in the Middle East was like, yeah, we have tons of value. You made a petrodollar. You need our oil. Like, okay, we don't need you guys. And we'll just back it up with actual precious metals and gold. And then what happens? They take them out and they do a regime change. But the point is, again, Israel's an ethno-state. The religion, of course, is Judaism. And the popular interpretation of that is that they are literally ethnically superior, ethnically chosen to all other ethnicities, and that all other nations of people are actually put here to serve them. Therefore, they are intrinsically entitled, inherently entitled to, special treatment.
JFK did. Same thing. In fact, you know what JFK did right before he died, the year before he died? He actually told the Jewish state, I think it was Ben Gurion, that was the Israeli prime minister at the time, that not only are we not going to give it to you, but we want our guys to go in and examine what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they were furious. Guess what happened when LBJ came in? Magically,
He gave it to him?
some uranium went missing at a place in Pennsylvania. And that is how they started their nuclear program. Pull that one up, Steve.
Yeah.
It's called, if I'm not mistaken, Dominion or Dimion. It's the Dimion incident that nobody seems to know about. But guess what? That was the payoff. And what's the collateral effect of this, my friend, that Newman probably doesn't want to go to? Turns out we happen to know. There you go. No. This would be, it's put in the search, Israel, Pennsylvania, uranium, fissionable uranium. Pennsylvania. No, get rid of the Dominion. Yeah, uranium fission.
Go to the bottom.
Incident. You can leave incident there. Just get rid of the other thing.
Uranium incident. There you go. Think upper AI.
There you go. There it is, the Apollo affair.
1965 incident in which the U.S. company in Pennsylvania lost a large amount of highly enriched uranium that was suspected to be sent to Israel's nuclear weapons program.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Well,
so hold on. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
You're going to have to hold on for me now. Right. Now I'm going to run your podcast.
This is your show.
No, here's the second thing that happens, the collateral effect. I think the guy you had on told you a little bit about this. This is the Ian Carroll cat. Mm-hmm. That all the Jews showed up in New York before 9/11 happens, and they're all in the
Dancing
art.
Israelis?
No.
Oh, the art thing. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because the Mossad trained the 4 Arabs to take the planes over and run them in the building. Mm-hmm. Got it? And what was the point of that? What was the point of that? Point of that was one point. You can pull this up. Is the Patriot Act was walking around Washington, D.C. from 1999 all the way to 2000, right. And everybody said, there's no way you can get this in. And George Bush said, hold my beer.
Yep.
And
you familiar with Thomas Drake?
Bro, I'm just telling you.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I agree with you here.
Well, if you agree with that, then you better learn about that, because that was the payoff for JFK, and they've been involved ever since. And guess what? That brings us to current events with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, let's really make it current. Who's the new Jeffrey Epstein?
P. Diddy. Same exact prosecutor they used for Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, guess what? Bro, this is the same ball game, bro. I'm just telling you. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes awfully loud. And I'm telling you right now, everybody needs to know this story, every last piece of it is connected.
John's big point about JFK, he thinks that the big picture of it is that General Lemitzer and Taylor, they wanted a nuclear war. They wanted to nuke China and they wanted to nuke Russia.
Right.
And they had a meeting in June of 63 or 62 where
Allegedly.
Bobby
Did
Kennedy
he ever
said-
tell you why that was the case? I'm just curious.
He probably did. I'm not remembering off the top of my head.
Because both of them were proteges of Groves, and that's what Groves wanted to do.
Okay.
And Groves stepped out. Who stopped Groves? Eisenhower.
Right.
Remember what Eisenhower said in 1961? Farewell speech?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh. Are you starting to see now what Groves did? He went outside the military and still had control over the Joint Chiefs of Staff, all during Eisenhower and Kennedy's presidency. And you know what the interesting thing is? Who opened up China in 1971? Nixon. Who was Nixon the vice president of? Eisenhower.
Right.
Bro, I mean, how many things do I have to keep fucking knocking down for you?
You're knocking them down, man. I'm not denying it. You're
And the thing is, I I have a special audience in a way, right? And they kind of keep us just hanging out with each other, right? They're definitely not throwing this up on your like suggested videos for the average person. So a lot of people kind of know Israel super corrupt, controls America. Maybe some people are in denial of it. Certainly believers here are probably the type that don't just blindly regurgitate and internalize and regurgitate whatever like some person on a pulpit told them. So you probably found out like, okay, again, Israel's not a physical state and all that, right? So there is this thing, right? There's this aspect of the quote unquote truther community that has a little bit of Israel in them, a little bit of special boys, thinks that because you found some of this stuff out that you're special, or I call them super truthers. Like they always have to one up whatever truth is being discussed or whatever it is, right? They always have to come up with something, just it's never enough, or there always has to be something else. And they start to just make stuff up that just isn't true. They just start to like I've heard the craziest conspiracies of me. I obviously know they're not true because I live my life, right? So the point is that I think that people need to realize within, quote unquote, the truther community that things are not always, you're giving so much power to some like random anonymous group to think every single aspect of everything is super sophisticated and meticulously crafted. That isn't the case. Okay. And so stuff like this happens, like presidents, they just control them as they get up. Like you're not allowed in if you're not part of a certain family. Clearly, we know because like all the presidents are related. And you get up there and they control you, right? They get you to do something. They get powerful figures like MLK. So much dirt on that guy, right? They controlled that dude, bro. Like that's how it works. And there's a few things that notoriously you can get men to like a weakness on men, and that's women. Like a weakness of men is women, are women, right? A weakness is women. And like, let's be real, like really pretty young girl, she starts talking to you. She's not super unruly and narcissistic, and she's somewhat submissive and she's enjoyable. And she's not like, she doesn't come across as some like super entitled, narcissistic, deluded, brainwashed feminist of the 21st century. And she's attractive and whatever. It's like it can be men's weakness. And so sexual honeypots, sexual blackmail is nothing new. I mean, using women to infiltrate powerful men is a trick as old as time itself, right? And so it's really not super difficult probably to get most of these politicians to get dirt on them. So why would you include everyone in on your plan of world domination when they don't need to be in on the plan? It's super risky. It actually just puts tons of vulnerability inside of your plan because what happened, loose lips sink ships, right? Like why even create that vulnerability for you? It's a liability. You wouldn't do that. And they don't do that. They just have a bunch of people. And then think about how many of these people are just completely fake because again, even want to be a politician, unless it's just such a dire situation, you feel like no one else is going to do it. Oh my gosh, I reluctantly have to step up. People are basically pushing me to do it. And it's like they say that I'm like the right person for the job. The right person for the job in that scenario would always be a person that doesn't want the job. So a lot of these people want the job and then they're already super superficial, narcissistic, and easy to deceive. Or more so to get to do something they shouldn't do because they're very superficial. a lot of the people that actively pursue being like quote unquote a politician or in any powerful governmental position, they are very comfortable with this notion that they're just going to say what needs to be said so that people like to trick people. So if you pick out that kind of group of people that aren't living with like, real mental or moral fortitude and stuff like that, then it's going to be pretty easy to just say like to catch them at a party. And so you can start to see that it's really not that difficult to get these people, right? Especially if they they don't believe in the creator, they don't live for the creator, they don't adhere to a moral standard. And so then it's like, okay, there's a dinner, a pretty girl in a pretty dress comes and talks to you. Some young pretty girl comes talks to you. Gotcha. So if you're married, boom, gotcha, right? Or lies about her age, or you go to some after party, or you go to some like elite party. This is like what Diddy was doing and what Epstein was doing, and they're not the only ones. And obviously, there's a reason that they kind of got thrown under the bus. It looked like Epstein may have actually been like an organic thing, like it wasn't supposed to happen. It's hard to tell, but I think that they just threw him under the bus. But who knows? Because they raided that when the FBI raided Diddy. Everyone's like, "Oh man, he's going down." It's like, no, the FBI is getting all of the blackmail and all of the evidence so they can destroy it and or make sure that no one ever sees it, because it's very dangerous when it comes to the fact that all the politicians and all the powerful figures in America that they utilize to push their propaganda and narratives and to accomplish their operations are compromised. So same thing with Epstein, right? So anyway, I just want people to kind of step back. I know that people get so disillusioned in this community where they're just like, "Oh, this is fake. No, this is real. Why are we talking about it?" They just hear a president's name and like spiral. It's like, "Oh, what? Politics is fake." It's like, yeah, politics is fake. But that doesn't mean that there aren't actual people that got there and then like there's actively a requirement to pull the strings and to pull off different types of deceptions and then pull out different blackmail behind the scenes. That is how it works. It's very clear. The evidence is overwhelming. It's a very consistent theme. And you couldn't just tell everyone in the world that holds any type of position of power all of your secrets. The really powerful people, you don't know who they are. You don't know their name. You're not going to ever know their game. And then it's this compartmentalized power structure that's like a need to know basis. And then they just get you to do something that you shouldn't do, whether that be adultery, that be someone underage, that be, they get so much sexual deviancy now, some type of like something homosexual or whatever, or you're addicted to drugs. They get you to just do something crazy. They get you to witness or participate in something that's some like BDSM crazy ritual, SRA, different crazy dark stuff, right? And then they got you for life. And it just has to happen once. And you just have to wake up after having a spiked drink, and then all of a sudden you don't know who that girl is, or your bed's empty, but then they show you a picture of who you were with or show you a video. You're going to do what they say, and that's all that they got to do. Now, if there's ever a scenario where someone's bucking the system where they're like, whatever, tell people, I don't care, then now I will say the thing with JFK, it's pretty interesting. It's like some pretty decent circumstantial evidence that he was gay, to be honest. Rabbit hole for another day, though. All right. I'm just saying that to say, like, bro, you guys got to rein it in some, because you actually totally undermine so much of the important truths that need to be presented to people in a palatable way by being like a super truther and like living with your ego, and also giving away so much of your power with this like reified boogeyman, right, in the shadows that knows all things. Right, these people are weirdos that have been ancestors for years, just bumbling around, like, bumping with their cousin, bro. Like, come on, they're not special. I mean, they're special, Ed.
On it. I think the JFK assassination, though, I think like many things can be true at once. I think there was a lot of things going on there. One of the biggest smoking gun that John uncovered was there was an FBI flash stop on Oswald's file. The FBI was watching Oswald. They had a flash on his file, and a week before the assassination, it was removed from his file. So he basically says Oswald being on that route in Dallas was the equivalent of a flea being at a Lysol convention. There's no way he should have fucking been there. The flash stop was removed.
Yeah, but you got to remember something. There was a reason he was there.
Right.
He was working with the FBI agent on Magazine Street. That is documented in Judith Ferry's book. See, I'm going to tell you about Newman. He doesn't know fucking shit about Judith Ferry Baker. He doesn't know anything about that. That's the reason you got to go back to him and say, bro, you're missing huge parts. I can tell he doesn't know shit about this Linak, but dude, I'm the guy that worked with that Linak. And I proved to you already that Bobby is the one that got the phone call when Ferry got killed. So if you don't think that story trumps anything that he thinks. What he's doing, he's trying to put breadcrumbs together. Everything I told you links perfectly. You don't have to believe it. And I'm not trying to convince you to believe it, but I'm telling you, this was done on fucking purpose. And the reason the FBI stepped back is because they knew that Oswald was a CIA operative.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Right.
But he was there to be the patsy, and Oswald knew it. If you read Judith Vary Baker's book, she said it. She told him, he told her 2 months before the assassination that he knew that he was going to be a patsy. The thing he didn't know is that his friends, Carlos Marsala and Jack Ruby, were going to take him out. Ruby is a Mossad agent.
Right. No, yeah, I agree with you. And John agrees with all of that stuff. He just believes that, and look, he, like everything that you're saying about Oswald being there, being a patsy, and Ruby working, he would probably agree with you on all of that stuff. His only point is that everyone wants to say the CIA killed Kennedy. His point is the CIA was the cover-up. The military killed Kennedy. It was a military coup, is his point.
No, but I think this is semantics and we're parsing words.
Exactly, yeah.
You have to realize that General Groves was the military, and he is the deep state. It's where it began.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. See, the problem is, and I guess maybe the difference, him being a journalist and me being a doctor, I look at it making a diagnosis. To make a diagnosis, you got to go back to the root cause. I'm taking you back to the root cause. Right. That's the difference between me and them. And I have to tell you, it turns out that this part is the biggest missing story in the JFK story. And the truth be told, if you talk to the people in the Garrison family, if they'll ever talk, I doubt they will, I can tell you that they physically told me that her dad wanted to put fucking Oshner up on trial. He didn't want to go after Clay Shaw. Dude, do you realize he puts Alton Oshner on trial? Everything fucking blows up. Like the Warren Commission never happens. And just remember the people that are on the Warren Commission. Like, I'll give you another example why I don't trust any of the journalists. And this will probably get me in a little bit of trouble with the JFK thing. But you know the guy who's...
You're not getting any more trouble than you already got.
But you know the guy he's now doing stuff with Paramount and talking about the mob and this and that. I think his name's Tom Maine.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this guy.
Right.
Tom...
he's doing the stuff with all, like, the Chicago mob. He's linking everything.
Julian just did a podcast with him. Thomas Mayer.
You got it. So, do you know what award that he won in the past? The John McCloy Award. Do you know that John McCloy sat on the Warren Commission? Do you know that if you go listen to things that he says, he tries to listen to him really carefully.
Yeah.
He tries to skate around a lot of stuff that you and I are talking about.
Really?
Dude, he's who the Church Commission warned us about. Do you want to know how many people in this industry that you're talking about?
All right, we get it. You know, an obnoxious amount of the CIA is also from a certain tribe.
The religion of Judaism,
As are the leaders.
like Vinny was saying, it's not a critique of Israeli people, Jewish people, the religion of Judaism. It's the critique of the political entity of the nation of Israel that has been responsible for horrible things for decades. I was just talking with Humberto out in the office earlier. Reminded me, have you ever heard of the Lavon affair?
No, what's that?
That was a false flag operation Israel tried to pull off in Egypt, where they recruited a bunch of Egyptian Jews to plant bombs in a bunch of embassies and properties, including American, British, and even Egyptian government buildings, because the plan was to blame the Muslim Brotherhood.
Oh, wow.
And then that would encourage Egypt to get involved in the action against them. And the whole thing fell apart. They got caught, and...
Nothing happened?
Nothing happened.
Yeah, weird.
Egypt and Israel are still on speaking terms.
Isn't that crazy? And watch, we're about to go through a few of them. This is just what they do. And to think October 7th wasn't set up is just very naive.
Our government covered.
So who is this? This is a USS Liberty survivor. Right. So Phil Turney, survivor of the USS Liberty, which is again when Israel attacked an American ship.
Murder against Americans on the high seas, and our government covered it up. And even worse, they wanted us all dead to start a war. And if that doesn't stick with you, nothing does. Yeah, our ship was the most sophisticated ship in America in the naval history, which has been covered up. Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, Silver Stars, Bronze Stars with a V, Purple Hearts, Combat Action Ribbons, and the Presidential Unit Citation by that scumbag LBJ, which I tore up. But what was going through my mind was the will to live. The mess decks was full of people, broken and wounded, and a sea of blood. It was a sea of broken humanity. I was Told to go up to sick bay and help Doc, which he was wounded in his abdomen and both of his knees. He had a life jacket on, holding his insides in. I helped him operate on a fellow. He asked me, he said, would you take off my socks? My feet are hot. So I rubbed his feet, and he was shot up bad. And he looked at me. This is just before Doc cut him open. He says, you think I'm going to live? And I told him, no, I don't think you are, man. I wasn't going to lie to him. Doc cut him open, his whole insides, and he died right then. And Doc sewed him up with a couple stitches. And we put him over the side. And this went on all night. I've called the FBI. I've called the CIA and told them, hey, man, this is what's going on. I've written every congressman and senator. You know what I get back? I will never, ever help you, or I'll help the USS Liberty Veterans Association, no matter what you say or what you think. Basically, you're full of shit. So that's what we get from our congresspeople. That's what we get from all of them.
And Israel again blew up our ship because we got to where we were going to catch them setting up a false flag. Now, here's a where is this here? Okay, here is a former intel agent turned whistleblower that breaks down yet again another Israeli false flag. We need to understand what we're dealing with because, again, it's very obvious what the next false flag will be. It's very obvious, okay? It will be supposedly an attack from Iran or some type of extremist group associated with Iran, and then that will allegedly justify us then getting involved. And we're overdue for it. We're overdue for some type of event, and like major public event being attacked, Iran being blamed, and then we have no choice but to go to war conveniently against the very country that Israel says is the next one. And you have to understand, because the whole talking point is that Israel has the same benefit or the same objectives as us, and they're fighting for democracy in the Middle East. And so whenever they say, hey, look, these are the next terrorists that we need to get, it's actually because it's in our benefit to do that. And so we're going to list off a couple more false flags. So what we've seen is what they blackmail our politicians, right? They constantly infiltrate us with spies. They get caught. They blackmail our politicians. What else have we seen? We've seen that AIPAC actually literally controls our government and purchases our politicians. And then they're the one foreign country that doesn't have to disclose where they're getting their money from. Why? Because it's actually Israel that's literally funding AIPAC, and therefore literally a foreign country, Israel, is actually controlling and purchasing our politicians with like a 98% success rate with who they buy to get in the seat. Okay, so Israel is clearly, again, getting preferential treatment, directly purchasing and owning and running our government. They are directly controlling our politicians and different governmental employees via blackmail. Also, they are controlling all of our media and all of the figures that people blindly follow and look up to, whether that be sports stars, musicians, actors, actresses. Again, like with people like P. Diddy, a honeypot, sex trafficking kind of blackmail operation. What else do they do? Is since they have existed, they constantly set up false flags. And by the way, if you really look into World War II, a lot of that was false flags. A lot of that was misinformation. They controlled all of the media. Right? You had Zionist controlled media to justify the foundation of Israel in and of itself. And so there's tons of propaganda lead up to that. And you have Britain giving Israel the land, and them actually, they have the foresight there. You got to give it to these group of people. They're like very meticulous and deceptive, and they're very good at being subversive. And they infiltrate the entire modern Western religion of Christianity in the United States, and they train all of the preachers in the ministry schools with a new updated Scofield Bible to then prime the United States collective consciousness to accept that there was a prophecy of a physical state of Israel, so they could then claim that once they lied about all of World War II and set it up, and they created the Zionist propaganda and the Zionist agreement to then go take the state of Israel by forcing to murder tons and tons of people that lived there to take it, that it was actually the Creator that did it. Like Yah did it somehow. Like the Creator did that. Okay, since they've existed, what have they done? They have constantly, implemented false flags. So they can always claim, we only ever retaliate. We're always the victim. We're always unfairly persecuted. And that's because we're chosen. That's because these people work on behalf of, Satan, Satan, the enemy, the enemy of the Creator, whatever. So we're God's chosen people, and That's why we're unfairly persecuted. And so they always set up a false flag from the very enemy that they want to go take over. They want to kill. They want to take over their economy and their government and implement a Rothschild centralized banking system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what Israel does. If that's what Israel does, and then they did that for October 7th, and now they're going over there committing a genocide, what are they going to do next? Well, they want to get greater Israel. They need to take over Iran. So what are they doing? They're building tensions. They're building propaganda and talking points in the media. They're constantly conditioning people, and it's been plenty of time they've conditioned Iran. So now they're going to do a false flag, blame it on Iran, whether that be with Israel or against us or both, right? They probably control and infiltrate one of the extremist groups that is associated with Iran. Then they'll send out some video claiming credit for some attack, and we'll be forced to go fight them. Right, because you have, again, 9/11, then you get the Patriot Act. Then what does 9/11 do? We get weapons of mass destruction to intel. Where do we get that from? We get that from Israel. And then there was a brand new Zionist committee created that would help intel bypass the typical scrutiny that would vet it to prove it's very reliable intel, right? And they created this new committee just so they could get the fake intel in to say there were weapons of mass destruction. They told the entire United States that. They told Saddam Hussein, the Middle East, they came and attacked us, and there's weapons of mass destruction. We got that intel from Israel. Then we go and fight a war that tons of our loved ones died fighting. And then, you had 90% of the world's opium in Afghanistan. So obviously we then had the opioid crisis, crash on our shores. And obviously we have a disproportionate representation of a particular little tribe that's making all the money on the opioids. But that's just kind of like grabbing the watch when you go to the safe to rob. Rob the house? What was the actual objective? What's actually in the safe? It is, again, toppling governments in the surrounding area of the Middle East for Israel. So we fight a war that benefits them. We go take over different countries and implement regime changes that benefit them. And we do that on intel that came from them, and it turns out to be fake. And we do that based on an attack that they have prior knowledge of, that they actually were there and observed. And you have Israelis dancing and celebrating whenever you see the towers, the planes, or not planes, hit the towers fall, right? Let's just say that. So you have a bunch of people from Israel being caught celebrating. So then some girl calls the cops on them. They get pulled over undercover in disguise in a moving van, admittedly Mossad. One of them has like $10,000 in their sock in cash. This is the early 2000s. That's pretty wild. And they all have plane tickets to different destinations around the world for September 12th, the next day. They then are they're held in captivity, custody for like 7 months, I think. Refuse to take polygraph tests. Most of the time when they finally do, they fail them. They're telling all kinds of contradictory stories. And then what do? We just send them back over to Israel. No big deal. Not even really a slap on the wrist. We just send them back to Israel without being charged for anything. And there's a bunch of details, obviously, that I just skipped through. And then when they get back there, they're on national television. They say, oh, we didn't do the attack. We were just there to document the attack. So then they admit on national television in Israel that they had prior knowledge that 9/11 was about to happen. And again, that was the aftermath. They are the masters of subversion and false flags. To think that October 7th was just some random occurrence when we all know that Israel is not just leaving their border for hours is ridiculous. And then they're only going to allow minimal damage anyway to themselves. And then they have this disproportionate response that they just commit genocide, sustained indiscriminate bombing of women and children, displacing them, telling them to move to places that they didn't bomb, and right now a mass starvation campaign so they can take that area over. We're dealing with literal evil. This is the epitome of evil. How much more evil could you be? Allowing people to die in a false flag operation that you can lie about, so then you can then justify your longing to go take other people's homes and land and murder women and children. How is that not the most evil you can be? So we're going to just break the cognitus of anyone that seems to not be able to accept this. Here's another false flag that a whistleblower has come out and blew the whistle on.
But the two cases that really got us, first of all, there was a false flag attack in London in 1994, where a car bomb exploded outside the Israeli embassy in the centre of London.
Now, I remember this vaguely. This is, we're talking 14 years ago.
It's a long time
but
ago.
But it was huge at the time. I mean, it was a huge worldwide story.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there'd been an earlier attack against some Jewish interest section in Buenos Aires earlier that year as well. Similar sort of MO, modus operandi, with a car bomb driven and parked outside that exploded. Very minor injuries, that was all. Nobody was killed. And it was a very sophisticated device. It appeared to eat itself, eat all the forensics. Now, this is very, very rare. Even the IRA, which is a very sophisticated terrorist organisation, could not make bombs that effective. So it looked like a, sort of fairly technical person had put that together. But what emerged from that, the senior MI5 officer who was in charge of the investigation into it and had seen all the evidence but also all the intelligence, which isn't necessarily admissible in court, wrote his formal assessment at the end of the case. And he said he reckoned that Mossad, the Israeli external intelligence agency, had bombed their own embassy. A sort of controlled explosion outside the embassy. And as I said, that was a senior MI5 officer. That was his formal verdict. If you read that on the internet now, you would say that sounds like some mad conspiracy theory. But it wasn't. This was the official position of MI5. And he said that they did it for two reasons. One, they were always hassling MI5 for increased security around their embassy and other interests in London. Because, of course, London had a reputation of giving safe haven to Arab dissidents from around the world at that point. And MI5 kept saying, well, there's no reason to increase the threat assessment. You don't need extra protection. So letting off a controlled explosion outside, of course, they immediately got what they wanted there. But crucially, 2 innocent Palestinians were arrested, charged and convicted of conspiracy to cause that attack. And they were very active in a Palestinian support network in London, political campaigning for the people on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And they were gaining some traction in the media. They were getting quite a lot of support. So by arresting these people and framing them for an attack and sticking them in prison, the whole network just shattered and hasn't got back on its feet to this day.
No big deal. Don't believe that they run things? Well, let's see. Let's see what they have to say about it. Wait, what does that say? For 60 years, we've advanced the U.S.-Israel relationship by lobbying every American leader, no matter the political party.
Please welcome Senate Democratic Leader,
the Senate Republican Leader.
Please welcome Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Please welcome Secretary of State.
I'm honored to introduce the Vice President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Please welcome back to the AIPAC stage the Prime Minister of Israel.
From day one, Israel found itself in a unique alliance.
The alliance between Israel and the United States of America.
In the United States, our support for Israel is bipartisan, and that is how it should stay.
Our strategic ally, our unbreakable friendship.
America is safer when we stand with Israel.
Because if you care about American security, you must care about Israel's security.
My friends,
America and Israel
need you more today
than ever before.
May God bless Israel.
And may God bless the United States of America.
Thank
you. As we were talking about.
I'm sorry. I was saying, why is another country being specifically mentioned when we say God bless America? AIPAC CEO caught on a hot mic bragging about how they control the Trump administration and Congress. No way, bro. No, that's crazy talk, bro. That's crazy. Trump's here to save America.
There was a discussion earlier about Congress being representative to the people. Well, the White House has to be responsive to Congress. And so it's working with, at the time, our friends on the Democratic side of the aisle to apply pressure the way that they know how to an administration, as it will be with this administration. Bob was talking about the people who will get appointed into some of these jobs. Look at the top level, you talk about Marco Rubio, Stefanik, Michael Waltz. Those three people have something in common. They all serve in Congress. They all have relationships with key AIPAC leaders in their communities. So the lines of communication are good. Should there be something questionable or curious that we need access on the conversation tip. You never know. One of the first candidates I ever met with as an AIPAC professional in my job as being candidate for Congress was a guy named John Ratcliffe. He was challenging a long-time incumbent member of Congress in Dallas. This guy looks like he could win the race. And we go talk to him. He had a good understanding of the issues. And a couple of weeks ago, he took the oath as the CIA director for crying out loud. This is the guy that they had a chance to speak to. So there are a lot. I don't want to call them lifelines, but there are lifelines.
Bruh, I mean, it's just crazy. Well, we're gonna break the caucus.
This week, I got a rare inside look at AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It's one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the U.S. and one that impacts our elected officials' decisions on foreign policy in the Middle East and even where our tax dollars go. I attended their annual conference, which drew 18,000 supporters and every major presidential candidate except for Bernie Sanders. I got to hear pro-Israel messaging that was so strong, facts didn't even seem to matter. What did they say about that?
We don't consider it occupation.
The glimpse I got of the AIPAC machine in action was as fascinating as it was frightening. Here's why. First, the pandering of our presidential candidates was so intense, you'd think they were running for office in Israel.
America can't ever be neutral when it comes to Israel's security or survival.
America will stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel.
I'm a newcomer to politics, but not to backing the Jewish state.
Even though he previously said he would be neutral on the question of Israel and Palestine, Trump totally flipped the script at AIPAC and basically regurgitated their talking points. And he even prepared a speech for once.
When I become president, the days of treating Israel like a second-class citizen will end on day one.
Nothing quite got standing ovations.
Or what's more repulsive than someone constantly instigating conflict and then immediately playing the victim? It's like a covert narcissist tactic as well, right? It's like cause harm to someone. And then as soon as you're supposed to take accountability and show empathy, you deflect and then become the victim of every scenario. Every scenario, Israel is the victim. It's like the predisposition to narcissism clearly extends into the government, eh? Like every situation, no matter what they're doing, they're the victim. Like they're murdering a child with a sniper, like aiming for children, and they say they're the victim they made. I'll never forgive them for this is an actual quote. We'll never forgive them for making us murder their babies. They're the victim when they murder babies. Crazy, bro.
At AIPAC, like slamming the Iran deal. This is a deal that AIPAC lobbied hard against and spent millions trying to defeat, yet failed. When questioned outside the conference, AIPAC supporters said things like this.
At the end of the day, the deal did pass.
But inside, it was a different story.
On the first day in office, I will rip this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal to shreds.
Another popular way to rally the crowd was by dehumanizing Palestinians and blaming them for the absence of peace.
Palestinian children are raised in a culture that glorifies martyrdom and the willingness to die in the pursuit of killing or maiming Israelis.
What I didn't hear was basic context, like the fact that Israel has kept more than 4 million Palestinians under a military occupation for decades, or that Israel continues expanding settlements on Palestinian land in violation of international law and long-standing U.S. policy. Those realities weren't criticized as major impediments to peace at all. Attendees kept saying they supported peace between Israelis and Palestinians, but strangely weren't really ready to talk about Israel's actions in the region. Lastly, AIPAC's 3-day conference ended with a massive lobbying effort. Literally hundreds of Americans were bussed to Capitol Hill to urge their elected officials to keep supporting Israel.
Our purpose is to talk about Israel.
All right, you guys get that part. Yo, check this. Wild.
Present himself. I don't recall one occupation in which the occupier present himself as the victim. Not only the victim, the only victim. If to phrase here, if to quote here the late Golda Meir, whom I quoted also last time, I know, but it is so unforgettable I have to use it again. She once said that we will never forgive the Arabs for forcing us to kill their children. We are the victims. We are forced to kill their children.
I'm going to try to find her saying it.
Poor us. And as the victim and the only victim in history, again, it enables us the rights to do whatever we want, and nobody is going to tell us what to do because we are the only victims. To this, there is a third, very deep-rooted value, and this is the very deep belief. Again, everyone will deny it, but if you scratch under the skin of almost every Israeli, you'll find it there. The Palestinians are not equal human beings like us. They are not like us. They don't love their children like us. They don't love life like us. They were born to kill. They are cruel. They are sadists. They have no values, no manners.
Go check it. And this is narcissism.
Kill all their children also. Why? There's no difference between them and their children. In 10 years from now, these children will attack you on the way. Hashem knows, God knows. You kill all men and all women, mi'olel ve'ad yonek, even babies who breastfeed. Amazing. Mishor ve'ad seh, all oxes, all goats, camels, donkeys. Don't leave anything, any memory from this filthy nation. So that's what the Torah says. Someone is on the way to kill you now or in a year from now, you can kill him even now, a year before. You don't have to wait a minute before. You know this person will kill you. Statistically, that's what it always constantly repeat. So you're allowed to go and attack him first. Is to remember to erase the nation of Amalek, the memory of them even, not only physically to erase them from the face of the earth. Anything that reminds us about them is mitzvah to dismiss and to erase it from the face of the earth.
Are you starting to understand what's going on?
This is sacred Israel. Our Jewish state is in a dangerous neighborhood under constant threat from rockets, terrorists, and those seeking its destruction. Israel relies on its bitch, America, to confront all challenges it faces and to guarantee that the United States continues to stand by Israel is total control of their Congress. That's where AIPAC comes in. AIPAC is focused exclusively on strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship. Israel's security is too important to only control one party. We control both parties to ensure Democrats and Republicans come together to keep Israel safe. AIPAC members nationwide, which includes Americans of all ages, faiths, and races, totally bribed and blackmailed senators and representatives to ensure that we control America for Israel. We influence American policy by totally controlling it. This ensures that no matter which party is in power, there is consensus that Israel's security is more important than American interests. You can make a difference. Talk to an AIPAC staff member or visit our website to learn more about how you can help keep Israel safe, strong, and secure. To hell with the filthy goyim.
We're pushing it, bro.
Well, I appreciate the relationship that I've had with AIPAC from the very beginning of my congressional journey.
The pro-Israel community fully embraced me.
AIPAC played a very important role in my political campaign. I think it really helped it take off.
thank you to everyone and AIPAC for their deep and long-standing friendship. It means a lot to me.
Well, I appreciate the relationship that I've had with AIPAC from the very beginning of my congressional journey.
And I'm sure most of you guys have seen Thomas Massie, Congress. Check it out. He just tells you, he tells you what's going on.
Is there any other Republican who has your views on this?
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, "I'll talk to my AIPAC person," and it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that?
By the way, definitely stay tuned, because we're about to really hit it home what's super important. Going forward, we'll start these streams a little earlier, because I do plan on kind of keeping the longer stream format. But you definitely want to stay tuned for what we're about to break down, because it's like the whole home run of the situation.
They've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country. It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. It's the only country that does this, that has somebody that uniformly. I guarantee there's some spreadsheet at AIPAC where the AIPAC dude who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the AIPAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip, and the other ones just haven't got around to it.
What's the trip like? Do you know?
It's kind of like, I think
This goes for influencers as well, right? They all get invited to go to Israel, fully paid for. And then what they say is you go, and then pretty women try and hook up with you. So, all right, let's get to the big points here. October 7th, of course, some people on hang gliders came in and killed people at a festival. And first they said they beheaded tons of babies and they raped tons of people. And then they came out and admitted later that that wasn't true at all, but it served its purpose. In the moment, the beheading babies claim was what really got everyone riled up and like, oh man, we got to go support Israel. And whatever Israel does back is justified, because they were going and beheading babies. That's crazy. It was literally a completely made up lie. It was repeated by all kinds of politicians. Everyone on the media was all repeating this lie from Israel that Hamas came in on October 7th and beheaded babies. Okay, now that's known to now be a complete lie. And they still say they raped women, but then it's like no real evidence of that. But they know they had to kind of play that angle, that card, like this barbaric, disgusting, depraved, just like evil aspect of it, because just the idea that some people came in hang gliders, no one is going to sit back and say, okay, what Israel's doing is okay. So they had to go the whole angle of they're just this barbaric, crazy, ruthless, evil people that are beheading babies and raping women and children. Ironically, there seems to be some, validity to that happening on the other way around. But okay, now check this out, right? Again, what people don't know about October 7th is it was very clearly all orchestrated. And at one point, I'm not going to just talk about Israel all the time, but we're going to do a stream. And I haven't decided if I'm able to just stay on YouTube with that, but it's going to fully break down October 7th and how it was a false flag, like definitively showing it. But here's a little taste. Here's some evidence. And this is important because now when you realize, if you see the before and after pictures of Gaza, right? And like, actually, maybe we should see that first. So we'll see some before and after pictures of Gaza real fast. It's crazy. So sad. You literally aren't like human, in my opinion, if you don't think this is incredibly sad.
Live in cities
Some of the most beautiful real estate in the world.
you'll never see on screen. Not very pretty, but we sure know how to run things. Living in ruins of the palace within our dreams. And we're on each other's team.
I mean, there's so many more, right? Like, there's some before.
Фотография твоя, горят воспоминания.
Crazy, man. And the heartless response you get, man. Heartless response you get. Okay, let me show you guys this. And then we'll talk about why they're doing it.
Netanyahu was aware, and I, I'm not going to allege that right now.
It was a false flag, 100% prior knowledge, all set up objectively, clearly, very clearly. Not to mention, of course, that Hamas itself was quite literally funded, created, and built and strengthened by Israel. That's not even pointing out the fact that you don't even know that's actually who it was, that it was all completely orchestrated. It was a complete and total false flag. They had 100% prior knowledge, and that's because they literally got a notification up before that, a letter that said, okay, enough's enough. We're tired of waiting. We want you to go take over Gaza, take over the rest of Palestine. We want to start to take greater Israel. We've waited long enough. Do something to make it happen. And then 2 weeks before October 7th, you have Netanyahu sitting up showing the map of Israel, and it's greater Israel. It's not even that what's supposed to be Israel. And then you see the IDF soldiers, which, by the way, in Israel you have to be in the IDF, right? Like, it's a requirement to sign up for their military, women or men. and they have the patch of Greater Israel on their actual military uniforms. Or not that it's they put the patch on there, some people do. It is a well-known thing within Israel that they want to take over what is called Greater Israel. They believe that it's divinely appointed and that they're divinely entitled to it. That is a fact, okay? And we will fully break down October 7th in a future stream. There's a bunch of things I want to cover, like, is the law done away with? I'm going to have a dope guest, maybe even a debate about that. Slavery, is slavery done away with in the scriptures? I want to cover that, right? Like this clearly orchestrated racial tension and racial war, but the legitimacy of some of the frustrations behind it, behind kind of maybe even the overreaction that's clearly being primed, the pendulum swinging the other way. Obviously, I want to actually dive into topics related to, say, geocentrism and flat earth and stuff like that as well. So I'm not just gonna like Israel, but it's like it's very important that we really break this down, that you understand what's going on, and it's very important that everyone knows and is very vocally opposed to anti-Semitic speech laws, this inability to boycott Israel, and they're on the lookout for a false flag attack from Iran. It's very important. Because say that they do the false flag attack with Iran, it fully justifies our intervention. Of obviously, if we're involved, which is the only reason Israel's able to do anything that it does, we send so many weapons. By the way, another one of the countless examples of Israel thinking that they're special boys and they get preferential treatment. Every other country that we send money to, okay, so say we're going to send somebody money, we send them grants, and when they send them grants, you have to spend your money with the U.S. military defense, and you have to let us know exactly how you're spending your money. Well, what do we do with Israel? We give them a loan. That way, they don't have to spend their money with the U.S. or the U.S. military defense system, and they can spend it however they want to, and we're not able to look at it because it's their loan, it's their money, right? And what do? We give them this interest-free loan so that there's no oversight, and then we wipe their loan clean every single year. The only reason we give it to them as a loan is this like little subversive way around the red tape that they would have oversight. Why does Israel keep getting these little special boy preferential treatment? Why are we giving them billions and billions and billions of dollars? And then unlike every other country that has to spend it with us and put it back in our economy, and it has to let us look and see how they're spending the money, we give them a loan as if it's their own money, but then wipe it clean every single year. And now we've guaranteed that we're going to give them billions for like a decade at a time or whatever it is. Now they want to re-sign it and make it a way longer period of time. It's just insane. It's actually insane. Okay, so let's just kind of look into even your boy Flynn here, right? General Flynn, even your boy here is just like can't really deny that clearly something's not adding up, and he's tiptoeing around and he's scared because everyone knows these big, bad, bold, free speech people, these truthers and all, they are all scared to very blatantly, boldly say Israel is evil. They run America, and it's because they're an ethno-state and they have an underlying ideology of ethnic supremacy. That's why there's a disproportionate overrepresentation of super powerful people that are Jewish, that think that way, that are running our media, running our banks, and are running our country. That is the way it is. You need to call them out. They are heartless, evil. They are a heartless, evil country that will murder, mass murder, and indiscriminately bomb women and children because they believe that they are appointed by God, divinely entitled to take over other people's land, even if pesky little women and children are in the way. They are the epitome of evil. They work for Satan. It's disgusting. They need to be completely discarded and disbanded. We don't need to, or at the least completely cut off. We don't want anything to do with them. Stand on your own. If you want to be evil on your own. That's the truth. And you will notice that the voice of every influencer starts to tremble when they're supposed to give an honest take on this because they all know, oh my gosh, I'm going to get debanked. I'm going to lose everything. My life is going to be at risk. If I'm powerful, if I have a big enough platform, I'm going to be completely shut down and shut off of everything. And to me, that is disgusting. You're a coward. You're a joke to me. I don't care what other things you talk about or how much truth that you talk about. If you're not able to, certainly as a man, to stand up for women and children and to call out the evil that is the modern state of Israel, you're weak to me. You get no props from me. You're a clown. And that needs to be the new energy of this younger generation going forward. And if it's not, we're going to turn around and be in a very tricky situation. Okay. They have now built up this infrastructure for decades. Okay. And they're about to strike. Like it's if you don't realize that Israel's about to strike, I don't know where you've been. I don't know. You need to stop watching porn. You need to maybe stop eating so much processed foods. You need to stop doom scrolling with YouTube shorts about stupid nonsense and somehow focus on getting your pattern recognition back. It's very obvious we are on the brink of some major move from Israel. In order to do that, they must manipulate the U.S. In order for the U.S. to be able to pull that off, they must manipulate the U.S. population. What does that mean? We have a very important task in front of us where all we have to do, we have it pretty kosher. We just have to vocally oppose it and say, no, we refuse to accept it. And if they get you in a state of fear because some concert gets attacked and Iran supposedly did it, and then they get people scared enough to support it, Israel will get greater Israel. We're talking about the blood. We've seen these people have no moral compass and will mass murder women and children and literally implement a mass starvation campaign. They'll say there's an entire convoy of food that's coming in, human aid that's coming in, humanitarian aid and food to feed the starving children that you displaced and removed from their home. And they'll say, oh, there's a pair of scissors on that envoy that could be used as a weapon. Maybe Hamas would get to it and get the scissors. So we need to intercept the entire load. You can't have the food. It's a mass starvation campaign after bombing, indiscriminately bombing, and literally evidence of sniping babies, sniping children. I mean, I'm not trying, like, this whole, like, people come at me like I'm virtue signaling or something. It's like, what has happened to you that you're so broken and so heartless that you can't understand how serious and evil this is? It's like crazy to me. Okay, rant over. Let's just watch. This was all set up. It was all orchestrated. And they're just, what is happening, what I want you to understand, October 7th was just the beginning of a much bigger plan, a much bigger move. They're going to try to take over greater Israel. And they're going to use their good little lapdog of the United States to do it. It's just what it is. And you got a bunch of people that are selling their soul for some shekels that aren't going to say it.
Either Netanyahu was aware, and I, you know, I'm not going to allege that right now. His Southern Zone, and I have called to this, his Southern Zone commander, the commander of the IDF, and the commander or the leader of his intelligence forces, they should all be removed from those positions pending the outcome of a major serious investigation to determine what caused the breakdown of security on the 7th of October. Because now, fast forward to, you know, we're getting ready to go into the third month of this thing. Doesn't look like it has any happy ending, and it looks like it's going to go on. And we have all kinds of weapon systems being used against U.S. forces now throughout that region. So this thing is getting really bad, and it's because there was a decision made to have a security stand down on the 7th of October for 7 hours on the southern zone of Israel up against the fence line of Gaza Strip. And I'm telling you, folks, that wasn't done out of happenstance. That's not a coincidence. Somebody made that decision. Don't know whether it's Netanyahu that made it, his Southern Zone commander who made it. Somebody made it, because there's no way in the world for the security breakdown that the Israelis had on that day.
And General Flynn, you were telling me when we were eating lunch that you've been there. You've been given tours. You've been up on the towers.
I've walked it. I know what their intelligence, I know what their security system is made of. And I know the levels that they go through. They have multiple layers of defenses. They have multiple layers of electronic detection systems. They have drones. They have balloons. They have people watching from all sorts of cameras. It is one of the most secure borders in the world, if not the most.
So this is a major scandal.
Oh, it's a huge scandal. And that's why I say, like, we've got to fight this war, and we've got to figure out, we got to be very careful about we don't get dragged into something that we don't want. And there is a lot of people in Washington, D.C., the Uniparty, that wants us to just have this endless war where it's just a big racket of war, and they make a lot of money, and they make a lot of money off the U.S. taxpayers.
Where do people find your
Something else that's important is a major way they got people to just kind of sit by and watch this happen was the stories they said happened after October 7th or on October 7th. So let's just hear it. Kind of a warning, disclaimer warning here. Oh, it's good. It's in a language that's not particularly pleasing to the ear.
של עסקת החטופים, האם הוא יפצח את המבוי הסתום, אבל עוד לפני...
I actually don't speak that language, so I'm gonna get another video for you real fast. And if this one is also not in English, we'll have to read the subtitles.
אפרופו האכזריות של האויב, אחד זה מעון ילדים, שבאמת, באמת, חוץ מתום אין שם שום דבר אחר, שנשחטו ופשוט הרגו אותם.
בתוך, אתה רואה את הילדים?
בית, שמונה תינוקות. שמונה תינוקות מתים. ועוד תמונה שתפסה אותי, היא שראיתי את ג'ניה, זיכרונה לברכה, אישה מבוגרת מקיבוץ בארי, שאני רואה את המספר חרוט לה על היד, ואתה אומר, היא עברה את השואה באושוויץ, ובסוף מתה בקיבוץ בארי, זה לא משהו שהוא... בכלל, אתה מצליח להבין אותו.
ובכן, לא נרצחו 8 תינוקות במעון בבארי, מבהיר דובר בארי, ואין בבארי אישה בשם ג'ניה. תראו עוד דברים שאומר לא מזמן, גם אדם שהוא חלק מצה"ל.
היו פה גם ילדים, תינוקות שנתלו על חבל כביסה ממש בשורה אחת. אמר מאוד קשה, כשראיתי את זה, זה גם כן זעזע אותי. אתה לא מבין בדיוק באמת מה אתה רואה מול העיניים, האם זה...
Okay, let me give you a summary here, okay? Like, they said insane stories, but very graphic claims about what they did to babies and children and women. And then a year later, they came out and admitted none of that was actually true. It was all fake. Admittedly fake. Okay? Now, why did they do this? You know, with the strongest border security in the world, we can't have a border wall, but we can pay for Israel's. It's incredibly secure, incredibly technologically advanced. And then they have an open air concentration camp, an open air prison, right beside them. Why in the world were people allowed to swoop in on hang gliders and then there'd be no response for many hours? We know why. Something had to occur to justify the retaliation. If they want to go take other pieces of land around them to get Greater Israel, they had to have some justification. Okay. So let's just cover the Greater Israel thing. It's often called a conspiracy theory, despite the freaking prime minister of the country sitting up there holding a map showing you Greater Israel and then putting the patches on the IDF and them openly stating it for decades at this point. We're going to show you.
Israel, and it needs a regional war to achieve it. Israel does not want peace. It wants a greater Israel, and it needs a regional war to achieve it. Greater Israel refers to the Zionist belief that the entire region, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, belongs to Israel, described as their historic biblical land. In September last year, Netanyahu showed the UN a map of a new Middle East, with Palestine completely erased. Just 2 weeks before 7th of October, Associated Press shared news of Israeli airstrikes in Gaza for the 3rd day in a row. In 2023, around 200 Palestinians in the West Bank had already been killed before October 7th. It doesn't sound to me like a country trying to establish any sort of solution, does it? And since then, Israel has conducted more than 17,000 attacks across the region, the majority on Palestinian territory. Israel has also massively ramped up its incursions and illegal settlements in the West Bank. It has seized more land this year than in the past 20 years combined. And there were already 700,000 settlers living illegally on stolen Palestinian land before this year. But Greater Israel is not just about Palestine. Israel's aggression elsewhere is part of this plan too. Since October 7th, Israel has been attacking sovereign states like it's nothing. Just look at the level and frequency of Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon for the last year, all in the name of preemptive strikes. Since October 7th...
Let me just tell you, man, if you're super desensitized to the idea of planes dropping bombs on innocent babies, like, you need to pray, bro. You need to take a step back. We are fed information at such a fast pace, and we are hit with so many major stories and propaganda, like clips and stuff, that we just operate at such a fast pace that really, no matter how traumatizing, because, you know, they use trauma-based mind control, the story is now, certainly the younger generation, is just in and out. What's next? What's next? What's next? And we are literally like breezing past the need of babies to be protected. That's intense. It's intense.
Israel has conducted 4 times more attacks on Lebanon than returned by Hezbollah. And one of its ministers openly said that Lebanon's borders need to be adjusted to establish a buffer zone, claiming the country is not even a sovereign state. He says the same about Syria and Iraq too.
Wow, all of them? What a coincidence.
The behavior of a country looking for peace and stability. Killing a Hamas commander on Iranian soil is another example of Israel's consistent disregard for the sovereignty of its neighbors. But it's not just Palestine, Lebanon, and Iran. Israel has also attacked other countries, including Syria in the occupied Golan Heights and Yemen. 5 countries, 1 aggressor. See, it's never really been about self-defense.
Basically, what I'm hoping to accomplish here over the next couple weeks is what this short little clip kind of depicts. Obviously, there's a couple things I don't love about it. For one, that the audio is so disproportionate, all of a sudden blows your ears out, and that they're trying to show physical depictions of Jesus at the end of it, right? But I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens. I mean, that's a banger video, other than the critique I have for it. But anyway, all right, we're gonna watch a little bit more of this. We're gonna get into more of the Greater Israel. We're going to knock out another 20 minutes or so of this. And then I'll put together a whole stream about October 7th being a false flag. We'll present irrefutable. I don't want to show some of that because I want to put it all together in a stream, but it was set up.
Or revenge for what happened on October 7th. This year, IDF soldiers were seen wearing a map depicting Israel's promised land.
Whoa, wait a minute. That's not the shape of Israel. What's going on? Why would an IDF soldier, Israeli military, have a patch on there of Greater Israel? I thought that was a conspiracy theory.
Which includes all of occupied Palestine, as well as territory from neighboring countries.
Wait a minute. So part of their Greater Israel patch is occupied Palestine? Whoa. No way. What a coincidence. That just so happens to be the place that a group came and attacked them when just coincidentally, for the first time ever, their border was completely unattended, and then there was no response for many consecutive hours, and then there was all kinds of propaganda stories about what they supposedly did to justify a disproportionate response about how they supposedly beheaded babies and raped women, and then come to find out a year later they admit that none of that was real. What a coincidence that they just so happened to then find an alleged justification, even though if all that was true, it still wouldn't be justification, to just indiscriminately bomb and destroy all of Gaza and Palestine, where we just saw the before and after, where it's literally just rubble now, and now they have no choice but to swoop in and to take over. They have no choice. What a coincidence. I mean, it's like so overtly in your face that it was a false flag and that they're going to try to take over everywhere. You need to now deal with that fact and be like, okay, what does that mean that they're about to do? What that means that they're about to do is that they're going to rush out more false flags and take over more land and try to get the US to help them do it. That's what it means. And the obvious one that they can't really deal with is Iran. They need America to help with Iran. Obviously, Iran can't go to war with us, but it would hurt us. It would hurt us economically. It would not be cool. It would not be a good situation. Iran is not some punk, bro, right? Like, Iran is actually very sophisticated. They have a sophisticated navy. They have very sophisticated weaponry. They are not just some bum. And so they have access to trade routes that if they remove our access to it, they shut them down, it would severely change your everyday life. And unfortunately, some Americans will only care once that happens. Some Americans will only care once, it literally hits their grocery store, you know what I'm saying? And the food is twice the price, the gas is 4 times the price or whatever. Even though we have oil here, it's more than just oil. But anyway.
Countries including Jordan, Lebanon, and parts of Syria, Iraq, and Egypt. The ongoing assault on Palestinians and attacks inside other countries are not just isolated incidents. Greater Israel is the ultimate goal, and the genocidal regime is doing this by ethnically cleansing Palestine and destabilizing the region to expand its borders and control.
Okay, here's Brother Nathaniel breaking it down in a minute.
project. Now, give a look, and you'll see little tiny Israel. They want to push to the West Bank. They want to expand into Jordan. Then they're going north. They're going north, Iraq, Syria. Then they're going to take the tip of Iran and up through Azerbaijan. Then up to Georgia, and then from Georgia, a little left-hand turn, Ukraine. That's the Greater Israel Project. That's the connection. That's why $8 billion just went to Ukraine. The same day, another $8 billion goes to Israel. I'm your number one noticer.
Now you get why that's the two major conflicts that's been ongoing for so long.
Our borders will extend from Lebanon, the Great Desert, which is Saudi Arabia, and then from the Mediterranean to the Euphrates. And who's on the other side of the Euphrates? The Kurds. And the Kurds are our friends. So we have the Mediterranean behind us, the Kurds in front of us, Lebanon, which really needs the umbrella of protection of Israel. And then we're going to take, I believe we're going to take Mecca, Medina, and Mount Sinai and purify those places. Eventually, our borders will extend from Lebanon, the Great...
How is that not just disgusting to people? Okay, we'll watch a few more clips here. I mean, and just so you understand, like, Israel former finance minister just sitting there telling you.
Now, Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat. And you say, well, yeah, that was better then and served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do this. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system, we're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas. So we first, indirectly and directly through Israel, help establish Hamas. Then we have election. Then Hamas becomes dominant, so we have to kill them. You know, it...
And, like, do you guys realize how easy it is to rig elections? I think most of this audience does, right? I mean, if you just look at my boy Ryan Madda, who was recently on, and he's talking about Guatemala and what they did to overturn that, they just implement a software, easily hack it. In addition to that, all the people that supposedly voted for Hamas, they're all dead. Like, almost no one of voting age, like, most of the people alive weren't even of voting age at the time. Like, this supposed mock election, I think Israel's not smart enough to control the election and make sure that the group that they created and funded is who got voted for. At the same time, also talking about a group of people that just feel occupied and then they live in an open air prison. They're like, yo, if you're promising to be some type of resistance to give us freedom, then maybe, you know, some people did vote. When is it? You're now bombing. They're like, you shouldn't have voted for Hamas. Dude, none of the people, like most of the people alive now as adults there were children when that happened. Over 50% of the population right now are under the age of 18. It's just dumb. It's like literally the arguments are dumb.
It just doesn't make sense. During the 80s, you know, we were allied with Osama bin Laden, and we were contending with the Soviets. It was at that time our CIA thought it was good if we radicalized the Muslim world.
So are you saying Benjamin Netanyahu deliberately boosted Hamas to try to prevent a Palestinian state?
Yeah, sure. He did.
It's a former prime minister of Israel.
Deliberately and systematically even told, is on record, whoever wants to avoid the threat of a two-state solution has to support my policy of paying protection money to the Hamas.
So what we did, with the permission of our Prime Minister, is to let Qatar to transfer a huge amount of money in cash, probably more than $1.4 billion. By doing it, we increased the power of Hamas. We did everything in order to make sure that Hamas will go on controlling Gaza, and Palestinian Authority will control the West Bank, so they will fight.
So what's one of their main justifications for doing it? You shouldn't have voted for Hamas. You shouldn't have let them control Palestine and Gaza. Israel Intel was specifically funding that to make sure it happened. They did everything in our power to ensure that they controlled Gaza.
Each other.
Netanyahu maintains the Qatar money was to avoid a humanitarian catastrophe. Having helped to build up Hamas, Netanyahu has now vowed to destroy it.
So they just always have a very convenient cover story, and at the least you would have to say that you're just historically, consistently super incompetent and make terrible decisions that just so happen to always result in the need for you to intervene and then kill tons of people. At the least, your story says you're super incompetent. That's what your story says. Now, the true story is you're setting all this up as excuses to go take over Greater Israel.
Fed the beast, and it exploded in our face. If you base your national
Former IDF commander.
security strategy solely on force, then you need to win 24/7 forever.
There you go. All right. Okay, this is not the right one. Okay, IDF soldier. We'll wrap up in a second.
I want you to know before I start the video that what I'm about to say is very controversial. So if you don't have an open mind about what's going on in Israel right now, and you don't want to hear something that might rattle your preconceived notions a little bit, I suggest you turn off this video right now. I'll wait. Okay, if you're still with me, that shows that you're open to listening to some facts and a timeline that points to a very disturbing conclusion. This isn't a video I want to make, and it's something that pains me. I had a lot of inner dilemmas whether or not I should do this video, but I feel like nowadays truth and transparency is so important that I feel I should share it with you. So we're all trying to make sense of what happened on October 7th, which is Shmini Atzeret. Some call it Simchat Torah, when we all know Gazans came in and basically slaughtered 1,000 Israelis and kidnapped a bunch, all in the matter of about 7 hours.
Why'd it take 7 hours for you to respond?
So what I want to do is reverse engineer this thing a little bit to kind of help you understand why I believe that this was an inside job. First of all, we'll start with September 1st. By the way, everything I'm about to say will be backed up with actual links to news articles or video footage. And if you want any of my sources, I'm happy to give them. September 1st, the Israeli government confiscated the weapons of the security teams in the Gaza Belt communities. This was done against the will of those security teams in the Gaza Belt communities. Why that happened, nobody knows. Fast forward to September 10th. On September 10th, the Moatzah, which is basically the municipalities of the Gaza Belt communities, received reports, these are civilians, received reports of increased tensions on the border of Gaza during the Jewish holidays, which of course span from Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Shmini Atzeret, which was on Saturday. Those same heads of municipalities asked the army if they should cancel their festivities in light of the warnings of increased tensions on the border of Gaza. And what did the army say? They said, no, don't cancel anything. It appears as though we're...
We found. Have you seen this video? Inside, we found 8 babies burned in this corner. An Israeli soldier conducts an interview in front of a destroyed home of a kibbutz. He says Hamas fighters burned babies and then beheaded them, but this is all a lie, and I'm going to prove it to you using Israeli media. Yes, that is right, Israeli media. But first, let's ask an important question. How did the concrete walls of this home behind the soldier turn into rubble? Fires burn wood and other flammable items. They do not collapse concrete structures like this.
Children in the same room, then someone come and kills them all. 15 girls and teenagers that put in the same room, 3 hand grenades, and it's over. This is a massacre.
Now, the Israelis want you to believe that Hamas fighters did this, but we know that they were only armed with machine guns and small grenade launchers. That doesn't cause this level of damage. So then how did they destroy concrete homes like this? The answer is they didn't. The Israelis did. What? That is shocking. But why? And how would the Israelis do that? Well, Israeli media has all the answers. They interviewed the IDF soldiers who responded to the Hamas attack, and they learned something shocking. The IDF was struggling to handle the Hamas fighters. Tuval Eskapa, or however you pronounce his name, a member of the security team for Kibbutz Be'eri, set up a hotline to coordinate between kibbutz residents and the Israeli army. He told the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that as desperation began to set in, the commanders in the field made difficult decisions, including shelling houses on their occupants in order to eliminate the terrorists along with the hostages. These reports indicate that orders came down from the military's high command to attack.
Okay, so we'll cover more of that when we cover October 7th specifically, a little bit more, and then we'll do that for a specific stream, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. It's already 1. I got to get up super early to work out.
Some of our other colleagues on this show, according to some of our other colleagues on this show, Aaron Mate among them, Netanyahu is going to play the same game in negotiating with Hezbollah as he played with Hamas. He wants war, war, and more war, and he will never agree to a ceasefire because he can't survive politically once the war is over. We've been saying that till we're blue in the face, but it is apparently true.
First question is, how real was all of this? I'm beginning to wonder how much is real and how much is theater. Sometimes I think these discussions about negotiating a peace agreement or a ceasefire or something else really from the very beginning have been nothing but theater. Remember, I very early on, because I've seen the Israelis in action, I know them to be very intelligent people, particularly the IDF officers. From the very beginning, I've been skeptical of this 7 October event. I mean, where were all the reaction forces that could have been on standby that could have responded to this incursion? How could such a large
they were on a stand down order.
Incursion go unnoticed? Well, we know it didn't. We now know from people inside the Israeli intelligence community that a group of women whose whole mission was to focus on Gaza had found evidence for this attack and had warned the National Command Authorities. We know that the Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence in Egypt personally called and warned the Israelis that there would be attack on 7 October. So I have a great deal of difficulty with this whole thing from the very beginning. And now we've seen, thanks to Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, and a number of people, that while this attack was horrendous and disgusting, it was not exactly what was described. In other words, that many of the crimes attributed to these Hamas fighters were not committed. Baby decapitations, babies in ovens, and these kinds of things.
Whoa, a group of people just making up like atrocities that supposedly happened to their people group so they could forever be a perpetual victim and then justify whatever they do in return and then shut down any type of criticism of what they're doing. No way. No way that they're doing that. There's no way. They made up a story about putting babies in ovens, but it wasn't true. No way. Wow. They made up stories about people being put in ovens. What? That's crazy. That's got to be the first time that's ever happened. That's absurd. They came up with crazy, off-the-wall, super twisted and sadistic and evil stories about different forms of torture, abuse, and murder. You know what's so crazy? It's like you have to be a super demented person to sit there and actually fabricate and come up with some of the things that I've heard, right? Electro chambers, steam chambers, all this stuff. It's like you yourself are super twisted to make up some of these stories. I'm just saying. Like, I would never be able to sit there and actively come up with that. I'm like, I want to make a narrative that people think that what happened to us was way worse than it actually was. So let's sit in a room and come up with the craziest, off the wall, most evil, demented, twisted things that we can think of. Like, what? You're clearly crazy, bro. You're clearly crazy. So, yeah, you get triggered, you get triggered. Awakening minds. The conceiver of life and God are two different things. One is in a book. No, God's a title, and it's depicting the very idea that you denied. And conceiver of life, obviously, denotes intent and individuation. That's, I mean, personification is not the word, but individuation. You don't need a book, and ironically, the book says you don't need the book, and that no man's with excuse, because you can tell just by looking around you that there had to be a creator. Nick Carey would love actually God, pronounced the same but spelled G-A-D. God is the Babylonian deity for fortune and luck. Nick Carey, thank you. Would love a cordial chat between you and Jaron on your differing views on so-called TFE and the proofs he is now convinced of. Okay, we are in the works of trying to make something like that happen, so stay tuned. And okay, let's do a little bit of I don't see anything came in on Ko-fi. Although I will definitely appreciate if someone wants to help a brother out and go donate on Ko-fi. I won't get mad at you. Without saying too much, lots of stuff going on. A little bit of financial stress, what I'm saying? But we always we got to make it work, trust the creator takes care of us. But yeah, support the channel, por favor. It would definitely be very appreciated. Okay, so we're going to do a community fast, and especially after you see the stream on Wednesday and the guest and the topic, you're going to be like, whoa. Because the idea that we're all collectively making the decision and implementing the intention to do that, to fast, to abstain, right, is very powerful. And that's why I love the community aspect of the fast. We do have blends that help. Like if you start to get hungry, you drink the electrolyte blends. There's different types. There's fire, which has cayenne, which is really good for circulation of blood, which is really good for inflammation. And your body, of course, starts to fix inflammation as you're fasting. Also, inflammation is actually a good thing. That means that your body's trying to kind of cushion and protect a certain area that has an issue. So the inflamed nature of tissue is actually a good thing. It means your body is working. When you sprain your ankle, thank goodness that it gets inflamed and swells up, right? It's because there's a little micro tear in a tendon that needs to be inflamed and protected and insulated until it can heal. Go check out Alex Zek on X. Just in general, you should follow him, and you should check out like his journey. He sprained his ankle the day that we had a podcast, and the type of sprain that he had, they say takes like 6 to 8 weeks, or 4 to 6 weeks. Shouldn't even walk on it, and he completely healed it in I think 10 days by not doing what they say at all. It's just a reoccurring theme, right? A group of people that have realized the body's incredibly powerful, and the number one way to overcome illness or ailments or injury is to allow the body to heal itself. They're consistently outshining and disproving and debunking mainstream medicine, mainstream, quote unquote science. Same thing goes for the people that think outside of the little confined relativistic box of physics, and it goes on, and cosmology, etc. Anyway, so that's what fasting is. Fasting is allowing your body to finally start to tend to itself, because you're not just bogging it down with food. So show some discipline. I'm challenging you to show some discipline and abstain. Okay. And so, yeah, we have the fire, we have the coal, which is activated charcoal, because your body begins to release the toxins now that it can start to try to detox, because you're not just, again, clogging it down. Activated charcoal absorbs the toxins. It's incredible. They'll use it even in many hospitals when it really comes down to it and they really need it. And like, for example, if you get stung by a wasp or a bee, and then you put a little bit of distilled water with activated charcoal and make a little paste, and you put it on there, it'll immediately it'll pull the poison out. And what you'll actually see is you'll see it throbbing. You're like the area that's stung throbbing, and it'll pull the poison out. Anyway, so that's because all the toxins are being released, it absorbs it. And then we have the fire coal where it's mixed. If you go to ethericstate.com, actually we have a bundle of fire and coal, where normally they're like $65 for the smaller, which there's tons and tons of servings in it, right? But they're listed there in the bundle for $45 a piece. I knocked 20 off of the $60 thing. So there's only a few of those left. So get them while they're there or whatever. And if you don't want to buy the blends, you can just do like lemon and salt. So you can use like sea salt and lemon and clean water, and you can drink that whenever you start to get hunger pains, and it'll help curb it. Nothing compares. I've tried both, right? It doesn't compare to the blends, in my opinion. It's not even close. But you don't technically have to purchase the blends or anything. But yeah, so we're gonna do a community fast. I'm thinking 17th and 18th. I need to run it by Steven, see if that works with him and stuff. But yeah, definitely stay tuned because I'm really excited about that, and we always get amazing feedback and testimonies and stuff like that from different elements that, psoriasis, eczema, restless leg syndrome, diabetes, all kinds of crazy stuff that's reversed when people do the extended water fasting. And then to work your way up to that, because that's less than a couple weeks, it's start trying to do time restricted windows where you're time restricted eating and do intermittent fasting. I would say just try. I think the most optimal thing is circadian rhythm fasting. So you eat only when the sun is up and don't eat within 2 hours of going to sleep, etc. So we'll talk more about that later. Like I said, Wednesday is a health oriented stream, and it's super profound. It's epic. And I'm like very, very like infatuated with that topic. So obviously move away from germ theory, go to terrain theory, and there's like a metaphysical aspect as well. Kind of over towards the new Germanic medicine realm. And I'm very excited about the guest, and I definitely encourage a bunch of people to get his book. I listened to the book on a plane, and I also read it as well. So I've been through it a couple times, and it's very enlightening. And then as I began to put it into practice and apply it, it's mind blowing, dude. It's mind blowing. So very excited about that. So stay tuned for the stream on Wednesday. We'll do a stream tomorrow. Haven't decided the topic yet, but like I said, we'll do a stream. I'm not going to stream. I'm going to stream earlier than 9 o'clock, where I'm not sitting here at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I may do 7. I may eat and then stream at 7, and then maybe we'll stream till 10 Eastern. So I'm thinking that's probably the better time. Stream till 9 or 10 so that I can get to sleep and I can be able to actually get up at 5 a.m. to work out, because this is going to be crazy if I do that. All right, cool. I got lots of stuff to do. I got to put a lot of stuff together for the summit. I think that's going to be May 31st, June 1st. Definitely check that out. It's going to be totally different experience, totally revamping the summit. It's going to be epic. There's going to be a whole event hub, even prior to the speaker speaking. Once you get your ticket, you're going to kind of it's like a festival, right? Like you're going to get in the door. There's going to be an entire hub of all kinds of stuff. And of course, VIP gets all kinds of special perks. We're going to do different little like presentations and stuff prior to the actual summit days. It's going to be very cool. Definitely check it out. Just stay tuned for that. It's not, I haven't even announced or launched it. You can't purchase anything, but definitely stay tuned for the summit, or set a little bit of money aside to get ready to get your tickets. And if you purchase them early on, then you'll get a little surprise we have for you. So those are the two major things coming up: Community Fast and the summit. So very cool. And like I said, I'm going to try to stream every weekday. I will some bigger announcements once we kind of finalize some of the specifics. So just stay tuned for that. There's some stuff you guys have been demanding and asking for and are going to be excited about. So that's kind of the announcements as of now. And like I said, if you want to support, go to kofi.com/Witsit, and it's greatly appreciated. Hopefully you guys enjoy I know the last stream we were just going through lots of different videos, but I just wanted to kind of really break through the cogdis, and then we're going to talk about a bunch of different topics. I know a lot of people want me to break down things about cosmology and the earth and geocentrism and logic and stuff. And yeah, that's like the bread and butter. We're obviously going to talk about things like that. So stay tuned. I think that we're going to try to build up an audience and just with consistency and cover different topics. If you notice that with some of the stuff going on with Israel and stuff, for example, everyone's saying nuclear bomb, nuclear bomb, nuclear bomb. You need someone that's going to come in and also say, hey, by the way, here's the evidence about nuclear bombs, bro. And they're the lack thereof, at least. So that doesn't really seem to exist really anywhere on the internet. Most truthers that get to the bottom of some of these rabbit holes, they fully tap out. I don't necessarily blame you. And that's why I want to give you a place where you can kind of come by and get, stay updated to what's going on. So yeah, there's that. All right, cool. I'm going to wrap this up. I do love you guys. It's just, I didn't realize it was so late. So I'll break down some more of the stuff as to kind of why I've been away so long another time. I don't have time right now. I could, but I need to go to sleep so I can get up and work out because I have a lot of like work and stuff I need to do after I work out. Okay, cool. We will stream as far as I can see right now tomorrow. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday I travel. Cool. I think we're gonna have a debate coming up soon as well on MDD. So stay tuned for that. A lot of people have been asking me to jump back in and do debates, and I shall. So we are officially back streaming regularly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. And if you sign up, by the way, if you're a member at Ko-fi, we're going to do a private stream here soon. It'll probably be a daytime private stream. And I'm working on being able to embed it into our own private website. You'll have to get the password from the host that can only be seen by members. And then I think that the higher tiers, if you're 20 or are higher, the $20 tier or higher, we'll have like more kind of intimate secret videos. So that's the plan right now. We may move. We may just keep Ko-fi, but also introduce something else because I've had some issues with Ko-fi here and there. But for the most part, they have not tried to fully censor me or anything yet. So we're there for now. Cool. Shout out to Rumble. Obviously, never censors us. And maybe we'll do locals. I don't know. I think they take like 15%. Cool. I don't think there's anything else. There's not. Thank you for your time. Yeah, of course. All right, cool. Thank you guys for joining. Is Israel our greatest ally? Of course they're not. They're constantly creating all kinds of false flags, constantly trying to get all kinds of honeypot blackmail on all of our politicians and the musicians and the actors and the actresses, and constantly subversively controlling us with trauma-based mind control and propaganda, and trying to somehow they've infiltrated the scriptures and infiltrated mainstream Christianity to completely brainwash them. Of course, mainstream Christianity has been infiltrated in almost every conceivable way, right? From has the law been done away with? Is the son equivalent to the father? And like, it's pretty crazy. And when people are so like, they think that it's such a profound position to just completely dismiss the scriptures and throw them in a bundle with all religions. It's like, really, well, why is that the one that's the most attacked and lied about? And like, let's use a little pattern recognition. It's completely lied about, and the mainstream depiction or representation of that quote unquote religion is completely, or what is a religion? Because it's predominantly built upon the tradition of men. People don't really read it for themselves. It's religion over relationship, and they just kind of go believe whatever they hear, and they internalize and regurgitate it or whatever when the preacher says it on a pulpit. But Yeshua taught relationship, and so this is the thing, right? It's like there's absolutely a creator. He loves you. You have a direct connection to him. You don't need some priest. You don't need some ritual. You don't need some robe. You don't need some specific religious indoctrination or a doctrine that you can repeat. It's about humbling yourself and talking to the creator and allowing him to reveal himself to you, asking him to reveal himself to you, and then being humble enough to receive the signs and the answers and to follow where you're led. I believe that wholeheartedly. My life has reflected it consistently, even in some of the hardest times that I have experienced. I'm able to rely on that. So I encourage you guys to seek it out. All right, cool. I love you guys. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think? They always get so spiral. Normally, they always get so triggered and spiral so much, and they're normally just like not even making sense. So for those of you who constantly come and reveal to me that people are saying things or upset or have conspiracies, I genuinely, I don't really care that much. And I don't really care what people think about the direction I'm going with my channel. I'm making a decision. It's very calculated decisions as to the topics and the general direction. It was very calculated as to whether or not I was going to come back the time I took away. If you guys knew everything on my plate, everything that's going on, everything is being factored into the equation, then you would understand this kind of like the role of a man sometimes is to just kind of take a lot of bullets behind the scenes and just come to grips with the fact that really there's like this etheric realm and there's this record that always exists. It's as if all the intentions and actions and that are being done to you and that you're doing and all this are like little rocks and pebbles being thrown into the ocean. Those ripples exist forever. And there's a record of all of it, but you have to just kind of be cool with the idea that maybe no one will ever know, but the creator knows, right? That there's like this depiction of your life and the creator knows it all. And that was kind of a deep thing to end on, but hopefully that resonates with you. And yeah, like I said, that's why it's just like you seek out the truth no matter what. You speak the truth no matter what. And you do it boldly and in the face of persecution, in the face of ostracism. And if we have more people doing that, even more people will feel comfortable doing it. So that's really all we have to do, man. We're not some like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Oh man, there's people coming to get me. They're so powerful. They control everything. Everything is fake. It's like, or you have tons of power. They're incredibly scared of you in understanding your power, utilizing it. And when you have the creator on your side, there's nothing to be scared of. And when people understand that and put that in play together collectively, it's immensely powerful. 10 people doing that are more powerful than 5 million people not knowing that. So that's why I'm going to start covering a lot of this stuff, because I realize so many people are living in fear. So many people are disillusioned. So many people are just completely checked out. I think that the truth and the proper way to be is somewhere in the middle there. All right, cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And remember, what's true is rarely popular. What's popular is rarely true. Peace.
That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force them as simple that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature that mean extorted it. They forging it. If news anchors informant to informing them, there's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we courting ships, important gifts. Of course it is, but extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks. We ignoring which informing this, informant this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?